Good morning. Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let's give everyone a minute to get in. Get in the door, the virtual door. Just admitting everybody. All right. A couple more people waiting in the virtual hall. Hello, everybody. Hello. Um, that little bell's going to be ringing. Hang on a second there. Good morning, Callista. In fact, good morning, everybody. Tiffany, Totaro, Jacob, Gabriel, Callista, Ben, Marilia, Kayla, Ming Lang, Zhang, Rogelio, Daniela, and who's waiting. Okay. A couple more people. All right. Hi. So let me I love it when everyone's in. All right. Um so I would like to remind everybody that if your space is noisy, please mute your mic. By the way, how is my audio today? Is it okay? Do I sound all right? Because I changed my settings for a couple
You
of
sound
audio.
okay.
Is it possible to like raise the volume a little bit because
Really, am I not that loud? Are other people having that problem? Can you raise it on your end? Did you already raise the volume?
maybe it's
Chitaro?
my computer?
Yeah, raise up the volume, see if that helps. How is everybody else? Is my volume all right?
Yeah, I can
If it
hear you
isn't,
just
you should
fine.
tell me.
Okay, and there.
I think you're good.
Good. You know, I don't want to spend your time really talking about this, but in one of my other classes, I have to teach some audio editing. And strangely, everyone could hear me fine, but while using the editing software, the audio editing software, there's issues through Zoom, especially if I plug in headphones, then on my end, suddenly everybody else's audio goes wonky. So I've been changing all kinds of settings based on information available online. I was just hoping that I'm glad to hear it's not affecting you negatively. All right, let's back up a little bit. So last week was a little unusual. I only a little, really. You know, I wasn't present, but my video was present, and I see there were over 40 visits to that video. So I imagine you know, most of the class took it. I also got a look at the last homeworks. Just took a glance. They're not graded. I have a bunch to say about homework this morning, and they look pretty good. So we're in good shape. I hope that video worked out for you guys. It's you know, some of you guys never ask questions, so I think for you that watching the video is probably exactly the same as coming to class. Um, but I hope that worked out for you. It was a fairly complex topic, uh, and it's one of those where, you know, I think everybody. Just to remind you, since it's been a whole week, I am talking about the brick, the seesaw, and the ball from class 7. And, you know, in a weird way, it's one of my favorite topics because it's come the closest to some kind of storytelling where there's a series of events that affect each other rather than learning how to make isolated events. Um, I think that one is worth using that asset file again, the class 7 asset file, and trying different things with it. It's ready-made artwork, which, by the way, does happen quite a bit. I have friends in my own neighborhood uh, who used to do all the Google animations, you know, that you see sometimes on the Google webpage, these little animations for holidays. But they didn't do any of the drawing. And as far as I know, they had nothing to do with the ideas. They were literally just making the objects move. Those pieces would be delivered and they would just take care of all the motion. So that last project was a little like that. I hope you enjoyed it. I imagine some of you found it easier than others. Some of you found parts easy and other parts difficult. I want to tell you what's going on. I'm just reading the chats real quickly so I don't get lost. I sometimes ignore the chats because it's hard to juggle all these different elements. Tiffany's in charge of my chats generally, but I like to peek also. Um, so the last couple of weeks, there were different subjects, but amongst them was classic motion guides. So I want to say something that should be a relief to anybody who found that challenging. There are other ways to make objects move on curved paths, right? And I think in a way, the other ways are a little bit easier, but has one big disadvantage. I just have to keep checking the waiting room. You know how much I love that. Making things move on curves. There's a newer way, which we're going to get to. I want to take a break from that subject today, so we're going to come back to it. But the newer way is there's a guide, but only for one object. Do you remember how we made the leaves spin around in an autumn breeze a few weeks back? Like that can only be done with a classic motion guide because we had several objects borrowing the same track, so to speak. So I could have as many objects as they want. But there's a newer flavor of tweening that has built-in guides. We've been using classic motion tweening, and we're going to stick with that this week. But the tween that we haven't tried yet is called motion tween. And motion tween has built-in curved guides. Let me back up. We did frame by frame, and that's going to keep returning. We're going to need a little of it today. Frame by frame, old school, do every drawing, right? We did shape tweening, which we haven't seen for a while. It was cool. We made squares turn into circles, that kind of thing. It has severe limitations to my mind, so we haven't been using it much. We spent most of our time the last few weeks, the last month, classic tweening. And I've been pushing classic tweening hard because if you could get the hang of it, because the main steps are repetitive, it's wildly flexible. It's the only one that only takes a moment for an object to change color while it travels, or go transparent, or get lighter or darker. It's flexible, but it doesn't have built-in curved paths. So we had to go through this whole routine with classic motion guides. I have to confess, though, I've been tempted to drop that part from the class and just assume that people are not going to want to move multiple objects on one curve. So I'm going to hold that off. The new flavor, again, called motion tweening, is something we will cover to some degree. I'm a little suspicious of it. A lot of people find it much easier, so I'm definitely going to include it. So that's just a little bit of catch up, really, comparing the kinds of tweening. There is, like I said, one more tweening method that we haven't even touched. Frankly, programmers have another method. They write code to make things move. That's my least favorite. Okay, so let me tell you what's in store today. Today, I've got something rather different. It's a fresh topic. It's one that one really needs to do modern animation. And I'm betting that other animation programs have a similar technique. So bear with me. It's a specialized form of graphic symbol. So one thing we've been doing for weeks now is we make our drawing, we turn it into a graphic symbol, right? It shows up in the library, and then we turn on our classic tween. The thing is, there's stuff you can do inside symbol editing mode that I've not shared with you. So do you remember the couple times we went to the library, double-clicked an object to open it up in symbol editing mode, and I kept on calling it the dressing room? Because we added details, change a color or add a stripe. The thing is, and I kept saying, but don't let it move. I kept saying, this is just to change the way the actor looks, do the actor's hair. It's on the stage, on the set that you make it move. That was only partly true. So bear with me for a minute. Imagine there's a parade, right? The Queen of England is in the parade. She's got her Queen mobile. The parade's starting back here, right? So the Queen mobile's coming at you, right? And we know how perspective works, right? So as she's coming toward you, she's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? That's pretty darn easy to do. Simple classic tweening. But what if she's standing in the car, convertible, and she's doing the Queen wave? That they do, right? Pope does that. This kind of way. The thing is, if she was coming from way back here, you'd be doing this. And that's just a hell of a lot of work. How many keyframes would that be if you had to do that manually? You know what I mean? So there's a solution. You take the graphic symbol of the Queen. I'm the Queen now. And in the graphic symbol, you have her do this. To be honest with you, just this. Once to the right, and then back. Because the graphic symbol loops automatically. And we've not discussed this before. So that means if there's an animation in it and you made the hand go like that and back, she's just going to keep doing it. So on the main timeline, you could take that little symbol, put it back here, tween her coming forward, whoosh. But because she has built in the hand wave, she'll be doing this with the minimum number of keyframes. So inside the graphic symbol, keyframe, keyframe, keyframe. So that's about 3. Then to get her back from here on the main stage to here, that's just 2. Mere 5 keyframe operation. So here's my goals today. Let's take a look at, I'm going to do some screen sharing. I'm going to backpedal a little bit, talk about just some stuff about homework grades, this type of thing. And then we're going to move into this subject called nested graphic symbols. Sometimes I'll call them animated graphic symbols, just meaning inside the symbol itself is an animation. All right, let me get to screen sharing. There's a couple of things in my mind I just want to, be thorough about. Hey guys, I do want to remind you something. The class isn't huge. And I'll confess, this is a challenging class. It really is a challenging class. It's really not for everybody. It looks like we've got 19 in the room, minus myself and Tiffany, 17 students. So there's, a chunk of people not coming. You know what? I don't blame them. To be honest with you, I tend to think that a lot of people start this topic and it's pretty quick that they realize they just don't have the steam. And I don't mean that judgmentally. Everybody tries different things in school until they figure out what matches their energy level. So I need to say some things about you and how much steam you have at this point. All right. Let's talk homeworks. So last week was class 7. And as of that point, I'd only given 4 homeworks. So 4 homeworks out of 7 classes strikes me as pretty reasonable, right? Just a dash more than on the average of 1 every 2 weeks. And yet I have 6 people who've never done a homework. So I got to say something. If any of you fall in that category, what's your mission here? I mean, if you're coming to be entertained, I don't even mind that if you can afford the bill, because you can't pass a class without doing homework. I just want to say, if anybody in the room, and frankly, it could be the people that aren't here now. So forgive me if you don't need to hear this, right? It's two-sided. You want your college degree, you want it to be a success, you want to make sure you come to college when you feel ready. If you're just flat out not ready, you have to find a way to delay it, to get ready. So I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying it's a mission that takes a lot of energy. No college is easy that I know of. Animation particularly is not, right? So I will say though, COVID, etc., 2020, etc., lots of stuff in our way these days. So I'm really open-minded to people doing catch-up at a level that I usually would not extend. So if you owe me homeworks, I am still going to accept any of these four. I believe as of next week, I'm going to start dropping the early ones and no longer make them available. All right. So if you owe me any of these, here's what you should do. All right, now this part's new, guys, right? I know it looks like everybody's waking up here, and I understand that, right? So let me just say this much. Have I graded the leaf exercise? No. I've graded the first three. And as last time I saw you live, I hadn't graded them yet. So I want everyone to know that you can go to Blackboard on your own time. So let's be really clear. Tiffany, this is like kind of psychedelic what's going on here. There are two of you, which frankly suits me great. I think I'd take one of you and ask you to help me in a different class.
I had to join on my phone because my computer takes forever to turn on, and now that it's actually working, I join in on my computer.
Oh, I see. I got it. So listen, it's best to do it on your own time. I'm not going to answer questions about your grades in front of the class, right? So that brings to me what to do if you think you did a homework and you got a 0, right? Let's start there. It's very possible that something went wrong. I have this often. Somehow the work got deleted, or you put it in the wrong folder, or anything that I can definitely help you with, right? So here's what you do. If you have any questions about a grade, especially a missing homework, you send me an email promptly, right? And you're clear. Give me your name, what class you're in. Some of you guys are looking at me like, of course, Ira. Believe it or not everyone has entirely matured in that way. No emails that say, yo, what's up with the grade? I'm not even going to answer it, right? You got to tell me what class you're in, who you are, which homework it is you're concerned with. Now, here's the other thing. All right, everybody, Jotaro, the rest of you, right? Please use the correct email. Are you guys hearing me? Right? Because some of you look completely spaced. Thank you, Gabriel. I do appreciate that, right? All right, thank you, Daniela. Anybody who's giving me feedback, I appreciate it. About the homework, about sending me email, do yourself a favor and use this email address. I'm not saying that I won't get email sent to my standard BMCC email, but why not take advantage of the hotline? If you use this email address, this is your private hotline. You know how in Batman, the mayor has a hotline to Batman? Direct. That's what this is, right? So please use the hotline. I get emails. I get so many emails from BMCC. I don't always find yours until days have passed. It's just impossible to keep up with it. This one I'll check often. All right. So guys, I'm going to drop that subject, right? If you need to ask me about your grades on Blackboard, I'll keep repeating it, right? You need to ask me about that. By the way, I'm a fairly high grader. So if your grades are low, you got to look at it, right? This is the email address. Please use this one. All right. This is the list of the homeworks you want to check to see if you did, right? If anyone wants to do a revision, you could even do a revision for a higher grade if you add V2 to the original name for version 2. All right. Does anybody have any questions about homework? No? So listen, guys, the 12 of you with your cameras off, unless you have told Tiffany or myself why that is, and only about 5 of you
I think
have.
Daniela said her camera's broken.
Oh, really? Okay, Daniela.
But I said there's a lot of like stuff going on in my background, so that's why I'm not showing my camera at the moment.
Those are good reasons. Broken camera, busy place. That's okay, Zach. I hear you. Some of you guys have your cameras off because, frankly, judging by statistics, some of you are not here. You think you're going to pass or learn by just turning Zoom on. And you know how I know that? I ask questions occasionally, and a couple of people never answer. They don't chat. They don't turn on their mic. They're not there. That's okay. Someone wants to play that game. They're not going to pass, whatever. So if your camera works, can you turn it on? All right. I do not want to teach a blank box. Right. So I know some of you usually have your cameras on, so I really don't know what's going on today. Not a single person of the 12 of you is going to do this. All right, folks, please chat. Tiffany or I are going to get back to you. Listen, I just want to explain myself, right? I teach because I care about people, right? I need an interaction. I'm very good at telepathically telling if somebody is getting it, if I should stop, I should slow down. But if I'm looking at a gray box, I can't empathize with you. I don't even recognize anything but the white letters on your gray box, right? Teachers who care teach because they like humans, right? Otherwise, I would present the class all in video only. Now, seeing what happened to you. You joined me and then you left. All right. Anyway, I'm jumping in. All right. So let's get to the cool stuff. I don't want to sound like a whiner. It's just I really like you guys to participate on a different level.
But can you see me now?
Let's see. There you are. Good to see you too. Hey. Your curtain's going up and down, I suppose. Really is.
Yeah,
It's to
I don't
keep
know
the
why it keeps
suspense.
turning off.
Oh, listen, all right. I get it now. So if you go off, I'm not going to harass you. I don't really mean to harass anybody. But it is pretty odd after a speech like that nobody else is saying a word. Doesn't it make the rest of you wonder what's going on? So it is. All right, listen, can I just say one more sobering thing? I hate to be that teacher. I watch myself on YouTube now and then just to learn how to teach better, right? And I like to keep that positive energy. This is such a cool thing, but I do have to be practical, especially, I remember being a college student very, very well, being the young one too. I want to say one more thing. I got to be blunt. I've got no less than 7 0 grades. 7 people failing this class. That's a lot of people. It might even be more. Frankly, I have an equal number of people who are getting A's so far. So that's great. That's really promising, but it's weird. I know it's just going to end the subject by saying this. It is possible that someone discovered in their heart that animation is just not for them. And what I would really consider doing, controversial thing for a teacher to say, is look up the BMCC withdrawal policy. See what it is. I know in some schools you get up to week 10 to withdraw, and you only get a W on your transcript, so it doesn't change your grade point average. If there's numerous W's, it doesn't look good. But if there's 1 or 2, I don't think any future college would care. It does affect financial aid. And I'm not an expert on this subject, so you really can't ask me. But if you just discover at some point I'm in the wrong major, I like to draw. I don't like to animate. This guy doesn't do enough drawing. All right, that makes sense. I would try to find an illustration school. You're always welcome to ask me about illustration outside of class because I'm an illustrator and I teach illustration, elsewhere. So I could answer questions like that, But so, it's okay for someone to have tried something and back up. That's what withdrawing actually means, right? I'm not encouraging anyone to do that. I'm encouraging people to make mature decisions based on your own self-assessment and assessment of a career that you checked out. But I would say if you got the wherewithal to stick it out a whole semester, really get a taste to see, momentum is often not gained for a couple of months with something as complex as this. So again, feel free to send me emails to this address with even general questions. I do teach at other colleges. I could answer general topics that are even outside of animation. I'm a multimedia artist, as most of you guys know, so I'm involved in other fields as well as this one. Let's move on to the new flavor though, right? I wanna show you this. This is incredibly cool. So we're gonna start with like a simple graphic that just points out what I mean by nested graphic symbols. So we'll get a little warm up, right? And then we're gonna move into some intense stuff. We're gonna make a bird fly. And the idea with the bird is you know, you do have a viable choice. You could draw frame by frame, have the bird doing its wing thing as it flies, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a lot of drawing, though. It's a lot of drawing, right? Depends how long that bird's going to be on screen. On the other hand, you could also animate in the library, inside, just this, which is how we're going to do it. And that bird could be placed anywhere. Here's an advantage. You could drop a flock of birds that way without having to draw the other birds. And they're all going to flap their wings. You could use tint to give them different colors and the transform tool to give them different sizes. You could do all kinds of magic with them without ever having to draw the wings flapping again. But that's kind of the beauty of it. If that goes well, I want to use the same logic to make a car go cross screen. Right. You know what? Give me a second. I want to show you something. Actually, I could do it from here. 1 minute. Poke around a little bit less. You're going to be joining me any minute, so you could start up Animate if you want. But before you choose a size, because I'm going to be a little picky about that today, I'm going to give you a peek at something. It's a simple animation. I want to add a little sound here. So both of those simple seagulls are the same graphic symbol. I tinted the first one that comes out. It's greenish in the background, right? Turns kind of yellow on the way. The second one comes from the left, and it stays yellow the whole time, but it's larger because the bird's closer to us. All right. I want you to see something in my library. In my library, here's the bird. And look up at the top left corner here. That's all he does. Wings go up, small paws, wings come down. Right? We're going to try that. I want to show you something else also. I'm going to show you this in a SWIFT again, just because it's a little easier to see. Hang on a minute. There we go. Look at the wheels. I want to show you something in the library. So there's the car in the library, and I'm going to open that up in symbol editing mode. I put these little rivets on just so it's easy for the audience to tell that the wheels are rolling. And all the symbol does in the library is this. Just the wheels turn. The car doesn't go anywhere. That means I could take out several cars and put them on the road. I could change their color. I could change their size. I could have traffic. Look, admittedly, it'd all be the same model car, but it's still a tremendous advantage that I just don't have to deal with those wheels on the main timeline. On the main timeline, I just dropped the car and I tweened it from one side of the screen to the other. Okay, let me close this and we're going to get started. All right, one last thought. So the premise is this: if there's a repeat motion that does not change location, right? I call it an internal motion, right? The queen doing this, the car's wheels doing this. It's not moving yet, right? The car's not changing location. The queen's not changing location. The bird's not changing location. All that stuff is great to do in a nested graphic symbol. I deal with the location and stuff like that on the main stage with the other actors and the backdrops and all of that. Is it making some amount of sense? Anybody? Yeah? It'll make more sense in a few minutes. Mike? All right. Let's check it out. Could everybody open up a new document? I want to try a different size today. So of course you could use this, You know, in class, I almost always use file menu new because every program has that feature. I want to point something out. In class, up till today, we've been using 640 by 480 the whole semester. I know the homeworks, people have been trying all kinds of different numbers, and I think that's kind of cool. You know, I just want to say a quick thing about stage sizes. If you're making animations for the internet, there may be all kinds of reasons you're doing it. It may be an animation for the top of a website, right? So you'd have to get a particular measurement, right? It may be that it's your own website and you're just putting animations where you typically put photos. In that case, you can make them any size you want that fits on the website. But if you're making it for television, right, or for full screen, right, then you have to kind of follow certain rules. So I want to point something out. This one here that says HD is 1280 by 720, right? And that's the one I'm going to ask you to choose. Full HD is even bigger. And, you know, I suppose I would like to do research just to see how flexible they both are. Are they interchangeable? They're the same proportions, but I'm going to go with 1280 by 720 for a practical reason. The bigger it gets, the more energy it's going to take from your computer to work with it. Now, while the vector art is light, all the motion isn't. And if there's more and more motion, it's possible your computer might be a little bit more stressed. So I'm finding a compromise size. What I'd like to do is 1280 by 720. Please double check that your frame rate's at 24. 1280, 720, 24. Let's click create. I'm going to use the same size most of the day. Now, since it's a different size, I do want you to come up to where the magnifying feature is up here in the top right. I'm going to click the small lower arrow and just hold it down, which is didn't used to work that way. This is much better than the way it used to work. And I want to remind you, I always want you to see all four walls, or I should say the ceiling and the floor. We often do have things come off stage. The car, for example, is going to start off stage because I hope you like the way it looped, right? And the reason it loops smoothly is because I started like that and I ended like that. So we're going to need to be able to see off stage. All right, get comfortable is all I'm saying. All right, let's try something simple together, right? All right, folks, let's go step by step and be really clear. I'm going to start with the geometric shape. Can everyone get the rectangle tool? Now, I'm going to ask you to put a rectangle about this big and about this size over here. About that big, about that size.
On a merge rectangle.
Oh, that's a very smart question. Hey, guys, are you hearing me okay? The internet feels a little shaky.
I think it's, if it sounded weird, I think it's mine because I'm using my hotspot because my internet's wonky today.
Oh, yeah. I invested so much in hotspots. Oh, you too, Gabriel. Your voice is breaking a lot, but you can hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Because I got a couple unstable internet warnings while I was talking. I always slow down when I get that warning.
I'm sorry about that.
So listen, I want to say a couple quick things. I didn't mean to harass people about the camera. If any of you are turning off the video because it makes the internet behave a little bit better, I've heard that said that in Zoom, if you turn off the video, you might have a better connection. I'm definitely going to accept that as a reason. So, you know, the two of you who just sounded shaky, if you want to try it, I'd miss you because it really is comforting to see you, but I won't hold it against you. You know, you'll still be able to turn on your mic and speak. All right. So getting back to what we were doing, I want that rectangle here. Now, listen, I want to say quickly, if you have a stroke on yours, that's okay, right? Just be a little bit more conscious through all the steps that you don't accidentally leave the stroke behind. You know, that happens in this program where you can make the fill move and leave the stroke behind. So right now I'm keeping it like this. I do want to add just real quickly, because we haven't seen each other in person, so to speak, for a while. I just want to mention that if you have a stroke and you change your mind, right, you could always get the black arrow double click the edge to get the stroke and delete it. You know, so if you change your mind, you could do that. All right, let's get busy. Now, I want to show you a couple things. First off, to make a nested graphic symbol, you could start with the simple object of any sort, right? And make it a graphic symbol right away. So let's do that. So you've got your object, make sure you've selected it. Again, if you have a stroke, you're going to need to double click it because before an object is a symbol, right? You have to double click to include the stroke. All right, so I'm going to control click it because I'm on a Mac. I would right click if I was on Windows, and I'm choosing convert to symbol. It's very important at this point that you're conscious you choose graphic.
Doesn't matter if it's a merged object, right? Or well, since it's going to
Oh,
be
I'm
a
sorry.
symbol, it doesn't matter, right?
I didn't answer that excellent question. You know, that's a good question. I've been really comparing merge and object drawing a lot lately. I think in this one case, it doesn't matter much. But I would like to say this, though. If you want to be on the same page as me, I think, you know what, guys? He asks a great question, right? Could you just delete that object? I apologize. Just delete it, right? Let's be more conscious of this decision because the things we're going to do later today do involve that difference between object drawing and merge drawing. So when you get the rectangle, I want you to look at the very bottom of the toolbar and remember this peculiar little button down there. You know, I hate the way they designed this button. You know, really, it's just a thoughtless bit of interface design because you can barely tell if it's down or up, at least in my computer. So if you press it down, right, it's a little tiny bit darker, at least on my screen. You can hardly tell, right? And that means it's an object drawing, right? That's the kind that won't let objects merge. Later, when we build the car, we're going to build it out of merged objects. So right now, let's work in merge mode. So I'm going to make sure that it's light, right? Not dark, that it's light. That means you're in merge mode. All right, let's draw that object again. I just want to prove something about merge mode. I left my stroke on and I didn't mean to. I'm going to take that out. Right? Let's all take the stroke out. Can you guys join me on that? If necessary, get the black arrow. Double click the stroke and delete it. I just want to say something quickly about that. I'd like you to go back to the rectangle tool for a minute, right? And turn the stroke off for the next shape I want you to make. So you're going back to the rectangle tool and clicking on the stroke at the bottom of the toolbar. And I want to remind you that color of none is here. That means no stroke. Now, because I'm in merge mode, what I just did is going to produce one object. Now, I know you guys know this. I know that. I just want to go over the terms. That's merge mode in a nutshell. If you can do that, you're in merge mode, right? If you can't do that, you're in object mode. You still have two separate objects. All right? So are we all in merge mode together? All right. So look, folks, I don't mean to sound picky. It's just what we got to do today is intense. So I do want to make sure we're ready. Basically, any drawing tool will let you make that choice. You go to the bottom, right? And if you press it, it's a little dark, right? That's object mode. That's not the default. Every object will stay separate. Any of you have used Adobe Illustrator, it's acting like Adobe Illustrator, right? But the default in this program is it released. It's a little lighter, and you could merge. Okay. Now, if necessary, Command Z, because I want one simple object for this. Those other objects are too complicated for this. So I just want a rectangle. I prefer it not to have a stroke, but that's okay. All right, the one in the library is irrelevant, so let's go ahead and put this one in the library. Convert to symbol. And I'm going to call this box. You know, okay. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do on this first demonstration is we're going to do a plain old classic tween. It's a good way to warm up, but then what we're going to do is tell that object to do something unusual while it moves, right? So we're going to start with a basic classic tween, and all I'm going to do is make it go from the right wall to the left. So if you want to do it by yourself to warm up, that's fine. I'm going to ask you to have it do it over 2 seconds. That's 48 frames. So if you want to do it with me, here we go. The object's already been put in the library. So now you're going to the keyframe. And from the keyframe, you control click or right click, and you're asking for the classic tween. It has to be classic. And as usual, the classic tween gives you 1 second, but we want more. So I'm going to ask you to go all the way out to 2 seconds. That's frame 48. And F5. You know, I don't want to keep mentioning the FN key. By now, everyone should know if you need it or not. I do, my function key. So I'm holding down the FN key and hitting F5. All right, I'm repeating things that are staples that we really have to just know as without a second thought. F5 is for extending time. Now, let's make a couple things happen. If we wanted to make the object simply move across stage, we make sure we're in the last frame, and then grab the object and move it. So in frame 1, that object's still on the right, but now as it travels, it hits that new keyframe on the left. Right? Listen, folks, I really don't know, and I wish we had the time to have private meetings with everybody. You know, that should be easy by now. Would anyone like me to do that just one more time? No request. Okay. Was that that was a yes, Gabe? I'm going to do it one more time then. All right. I'm going to Command Z a bunch of times until I see a plain old single keyframe on the timeline with no color or anything. All right. All right. I'm back to step 1. So before you classic tween, you turn on the symbol, right? So that you have to do on stage. You click the object, convert to symbol. If you already did that, it's in the library. By the way, when you click on a symbol, the properties palette tells you that it's a graphic symbol, right? So if I had a new object there and selected it, just to show you what I mean, the properties palette doesn't say a thing about it, just says shape. This one here says graphic. All right. Next step is on the timeline. So the very next step, you go to keyframe 1, the only keyframe, and control click it and say create classic tween. Now, if everything took place in 1 second, you'd be ahead of the game because this is a second long, right? We want to go further. So we're going to go out to 2 seconds and F5. So again, know your own keyboard. You might need the function key, the FN key, you might not. So let's be clear, all we did was give that thing a longer life, but it hasn't gone anywhere, right? Once you want it to move, the next step is always about figuring out when you want it to arrive. So if I wanted to arrive in frame 35, I'd bring the playhead here and move it. But that's not what I want. I want it to arrive in frame 48. It left the station in frame 1, but in frame 48, it should arrive here. All right, play it just to be sure it's working. If that is working, I would like to add 1 layer of complexity. In the middle of its path, so that's about 1 second in, I want it to hit the ceiling. So here it is in frame 1. I'm traveling along. Once I see it in the middle of the stage, right? So I could do that visually, or I could count frames. Just raise it up. And one of the things I love about classic tweening is that it makes the keyframe for you if you move an object. I love that because a lot of what we do is just moving stuff. You know, so you move an object in a classic tween, it makes a keyframe. It won't if all you did was make it larger or rotate it or change its color. The only thing that automatically makes a keyframe is dragging the object to a new location. So you should rewind it and see if it behaves like this. All right. You know, I kind of wish I had a chart. I think I should go back to YouTube at some point and maybe include in the names of each one what the topic was. I think a couple people would do well just to go back to the first class on classic tweening. You know, just as a refresher. How are you guys? All right? So here's the new deal. Now, if that object's supposed to be doing something cool, right, while it travels, we're going to do that local motion in place, but inside of symbol editing mode. So here's the best way to get to symbol editing mode. Go to your library. If you've got two symbols in there, you want to be sure you've got the newer one. It's probably on bottom. And double click the icon. Mine's called box. I'm double clicking that icon. And here's my box. So we've been here before, but in the past, all we did was add decorations on it, make it more interesting, or punch holes in it and that kind of thing. This time we are going to do a kind of motion, but a kind where it doesn't change location. Now I want to say something to you. Inside symbol editing mode, that rectangle acts like it's brand new. In other words, you could still do, you could change edges. It's in an editable state inside symbol editing mode. To be sure that you're in symbol editing mode though, I'd like you to join me on something. Let me Command Z that. Look in the top left. You're going to need to make a habit of looking here all the time. If it's got a graphic symbol icon, you're in symbol editing mode. If it says the name of one of your symbols in the library, you're not in the movie, right? Right? You're in symbol editing mode. That's a separate timeline. And that's why your timeline's only 1 frame long currently, right? We could go back to the movie. But right now, why not join me on this exercise and see what you think of it. I want to do some simple frame by frame animation, right? And I think we're gonna go by twos. So I'd like you to join me this way. I'd like you to go to this timeline in symbol editing mode. You're currently in frame 1. I want you to go to frame 3. So we're going by twos, we're skipping a frame, right? And I want you to copy it there. I want to point out that there's 2 good ways to do it, right? Because I'm not in a motion right now. If I F6, it's just going to copy the last keyframe. So that's probably the fastest way. But another way we got used to was option dragging, right? Holding down Option on a Mac or holding down Alt and dragging. Truly though, since the object's in the same spot, if I F6, it's just going to copy the last keyframe. It's virtually the same. So does everyone have a new keyframe? All right, join me on this then. On the second one, deselect it. And what I want you to do is this. I want you to take that down a little bit, just a little. Let's do that to each side. And I want you to copy that 2 frames down. I'm going to use the F6 method right now. So I'm going 2 frames down and I'm F6ing. So when I say 2 frames, I mean skip 1, right? What I want you to do is pucker it a little more. So you do have to deselect it because you don't want to move it. That would really ruin this animation. What we're talking about is motion in place. Okay, I'm going to take this a little further.
Professor, how did you
Yeah.
curve it? It's not letting me curve the thing.
Oh, you may have that object that you, well, no, that would work in either mode. So you have to deselect it and get the black arrow.
Okay,
Is it working?
hold on.
Are you in symbol editing mode?
Oh yeah, now it's working. I just have to deselect it, which seems odd.
Right. You know something? I'm so glad you actually mentioned that. I want everybody to hear what he just said. Oh, you have to deselect it, which seems odd. When you select it, it thinks you're changing the color or you're going to move it, which are both about the whole object. So that's why it doesn't want you to select it, right? You know, if you click off of it, you can go take parts and move them around. So this is what I've got right now. I've got the thing puckering by 2 steps, just like that. And it takes about 5 frames. I want you to see what this actually produced, but going back to the main stage, right? So I've got 3 keyframes worth of animation here. And let's go back to the main stage. So you go in the top left. You see that little arrow in the top left? So the symbol beside it says you're in graphic editing mode for this. Mine's called box. The black arrow will take me back to the main timeline. All right. So remember, your main timeline already had motion. Play it. put it say looping on mine. Control menu, loop playback. Next time I play it. Listen, if that didn't work, don't feel bad, right? I'm willing to redo it because we're going to take this to a very deep place, right? But can you let me know either with the reactions buttons or a physical thumb? Did that work for you? Because if I don't get any thumbs up, we're just going to do the whole thing over, and that's all right.
It worked.
I'll let him.
Okay. All right. Couple people got it working. That's
Not
cool.
that it worked.
Excellent. All right. It's worth doing again because I have to tell you, nested symbols is what we're talking about, right? Inside this symbol, actually, it's not a nested symbol. I'm going to go back to my original way of calling it animated graphic symbols. I use them constantly. You know, I had a guy driving in a car and he had smoke coming off his cigarette. You know, he's smoking in the car. And, you know, it's incredibly tedious. Smoke, I don't even, you know, drawing smoke isn't that easy to begin with. I didn't really want to sit there making constant puffs of smoke for the entire drive. So I just built into the graphic symbol a couple puffs of smoke, and they just kept playing over and over again, which is what's going on right now. Look, guys, let's do this one more time. I think it's worth it, right? So I'm going to stop this. I'm going to hit return, stop it. All right, can everyone open a new document? File menu, new. Again, I want to go with HD, not full HD. That's even bigger. HD. That's 1280 wide, 720 tall, and we're choosing a 24 frame rate. Let's click create. All right, let's make sure you can see the whole stage. So I'm coming up to the top right. I'm using this tiny little arrow. I'm holding it down because it's big, you know, so I really got to zoom out. This time, let's make that object start in the top left. All right. So again, let's go over this. Let's do it really neat. Get the rectangle tool, come down and choose a fill color. I want you to click on the stroke box and make sure you don't have a stroke. Now, we didn't even draw yet because I do want to remind you, we are choosing to stay in merge mode for now. So if this is a little bit dark, you're in the wrong mode. You got to release it. So you got a rectangle ready to go, right? Didn't draw it yet. You got to fill, no stroke. You're in merge mode. And I'd like you to put a rectangle here. Now, before we go to the next step, there's several orders we can go in. I'm just choosing to do the stage motion, the main stage, right? People call it the main stage. Sometimes they call it the route timeline, right? It means pretty much the same thing. So we're going to have it travel before we work with the details of how it behaves. All right, so that means you have to make a graphic symbol out of it now. So let's select it with the black arrow. Control click it or right click, convert to symbol, right? It makes sure it's graphic type, and you can call it whatever you want to call it. I'm calling mine Boxy, and I'm going to say okay. And there it is in the library. All right, let's do a simple classic tween. Let's have it bounce a couple of times. So what I think I want to do is in 3 seconds, I want it to arrive here. So I'm going to take care of that first. So here I am on frame 1. I'm going to turn on the classic tween. So you always go to the keyframe to turn on your tween. So I'm going to the keyframe. And I'm saying create classic tween. It's all about classic tween. 1 second's not enough. So I'm going to go now to 3 seconds, and I'm going to F5 to extend the timeline. I would like to do this just a little bit differently. Could everybody bring the playhead back? You know, I think some people just like to work in order. Sometimes I'll get that, oh, it has to get here. I'll do that first, and then go back and deal with all the details of how it traveled there. But right now, let's just go straight through the timeline. We're going to work, you know, in time ourselves. So how about this? You got a 3 second timeline? Did you go out to 3 seconds? That's roughly an F5. If so, you can come back, move the playhead. I don't know. Let's see. That's around 72 frames. Let's go to around frame 20 and bring it down to here. So I'm having it travel diagonally and hit the floor. I'm going to go to frame 40 and have it travel diagonally up here. and hit the ceiling. And I think why not go? I'm a little running out of room, so I'm just going to go another 10, 15 frames. You don't have to have the exact same numbers as me. And I'm going to drag it down to the corner. I really don't mind if yours is not exactly the same. So don't worry if you're like, oh, no, wait a second, Ira, slow down. I just want to make sure you have a conscious path. In the end, I want it to arrive in the right corner. I want to point something out. You know, one way to understand your keyframes is to just go from keyframe to keyframe and just remind yourself what the primary key moments are. There is a cool feature that does that. So on these controls beneath my timeline are these two little arrows that can be handy. This is step to the next keyframe. So that's the second spot. I'm going to click it again. It's way down here. Here's the third keyframe. There's the fourth, and I happen to have a fifth. All right, just play yours though. So this is the path I'm traveling. Yours may be a little different. That's okay. I want to point out these are just variations on things we've been doing for weeks. The new thing is what we're going to do with that symbol itself, right? So if you wanted to do something interesting while it travels, we could go to the live, double click that symbol's icon, and that's going to open this symbol up in symbol editing mode where we can mess with it. So let's do just that. Let's go over to the library, find that symbol. You might have many after a while, and double click its little icon. And you should know right away which timeline you're on. This is
Wait,
not the
can you do that again, Professor?
Absolutely. So I'm going back. So after this main animation's made, right, we got the idea we wanted to do something cooler. So we go to the library, find this icon, and double click it. You with me now? Are we good?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So listen, I want to say something to those of you who are particularly fluent at this. You know, some people just got their momentum early. So I want to say something. Inside the graphic symbol, you could use any technique that we learned, right? Provided that the object doesn't change location. So, I mean, if I wanted to change shape, I could shape tween it, which we might try soon. I could classic tween it for rotating in there or changing tint only. I could frame by frame. That's what we just did. Any technique's okay inside of it. All right. I want to do one more frame by frame like we did last time. I'm going to do the same one. So here we are inside symbol editing mode, and you keep looking in the top left. So remind yourself, you're not on stage really. All right, now come down to the keyframe. All right, so I want to copy that drawing into frame 3. Right, you could option drag it over, you could alt drag it over, or in this case, we could simply F6 it. So you want to make sure that you just created a copy and you got 2 keyframes now. All right, like someone said earlier, to change the shape without moving it, you have to deselect it or that happens. If that happens, you better Command Z. You don't want it moving. Click off of it. And now let's change its shape. Let's just change it a little bit like we did last time. Little bit. Let's go 2 frames further down and copy it again using any of the methods we discussed. I'm going to use F6. Again, I have to deselect it. Take it in a little more. Now this is short, right? And I'm going to let it be, right? But then I'm going to come back and make it even better. Right now, this tiny timeline here is just doing that. It's what I call a pucker. All right, looks pretty cool. It's going to be doing that while it travels. So a way to see what we produced is to go back to the main timeline. So that's why we want to look in the top left again. Click that arrow to get back to the main timeline. And play it. Hyper little thing. Is it getting easier? I'm seeing some marginal smiles. That's pretty good. Clear thumbs up. I appreciate that. Okay, excellent. So I want to make this a little bit better. You know, I don't think it's bad really, you know, but I'm trying to think of, would it be better? I have a hunch. Let's see if this is worth following up. Join me on it. We're going to do an experiment together. Go back to the library and open that object up again in symbol editing mode. You know, it looked better than I thought. The reason I didn't think it would look good is because it ends here and automatically goes back to full size. Like it didn't travel through the intermediary state going backwards, you know, which might look cool. I think what I'd like to do before we even try that is take this one step further, pucker it even more. So if you're in symbol editing mode, remember you double click this to get here, right? I'd like you to notice you got your 3 keyframes. Let's copy it again. We're still going by 2s. Let's copy it again. So it's the 4th keyframe. I'm going to deselect it and take it in a little bit further. All right, so it's taking a little bit, oops, Command Z. All right, hang on, there's someone at the door. Give me a moment. At the virtual door. All right, so now we got to go in an extra step. I think this is too big of a leap for when this thing loops to go back to frame 1, right? So how would we make it reverse? Now guys, listen, there's several ways to do this, right? But I'd like you to, I want to try something with you because I'm going to use this concept later. Let's say we counted these keyframes, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? There's 4 of them. Doesn't it make sense that if I copy them so that I get 4, 3, 2, 1, right? It would go in reverse motion, right? So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. If I'm clear about that, I could copy the 3rd one here. I could copy the 2nd one further back. I copy the 1st one even further. I hope this makes sense. Let's give it a shot. All right, so this is what I'm trying to say. Frame 4 is the end of its pucker. We want it now to go the opposite direction, sometimes called a bloat, right? So now it's going to bloat, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to steal this keyframe, the prior one, and I'm going to option drag it all the way to the new slot. Now, if you missed that, here's the current last frame. I'm backing up. I'm holding down Option or Alt, and I'm leapfrogging right over that keyframe into the new slot. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the 2nd keyframe. Holding down an Option, and I'm leapfrogging over them all, and I'm going to the next new slot. Now I'm going to go to frame 1, and I'm going to Option drag that all the way to the new slot. This is what that looks like. Did you see how it reversed smoothly? If that didn't work for you, or you'd just like to try another method, you're welcome to Command Z with me so you get back to your 4 keyframes. And I'm going to show you another method, right? Command Z. So here's the original 4. I like that method, but there's another good method, right? I could take all 4 at once, copy the whole block over, and then ask Adobe Animate to reverse it. Let's try that. So to do that, we have to select all 4 of these. I'd like to show you my favorite method for doing that. I'd like you to click the first keyframe, hold down Shift, keep it down. This is on Mac and Windows, and click the last one. You see how the whole bar went blue? So I could choose any number of keyframes that way just to copy a sequence somewhere else. I'm going to do that again. Click the first keyframe, I'm holding down Shift, and I'm clicking the last one. All right, they should be blue. Now I'm going to hold down Option to drag the whole unit back to back with this one. And it's easiest if I drag from the first keyframe. So I'm holding down Option now, Alt on Windows. I'm going to this keyframe. Look what I'm doing. I'm pulling it out. I don't want to drop it out here really. And I don't want to drop it over the original, right? Back to back is good, or I could skip 1 frame to keep that same rhythm going. Frankly, that's not enough, right? I just copied the same motion. This thing loops anyway, so that would have been a waste. I only did it because I'm going to take these 4, which are still highlighted, and ask the program to reverse the order for me. I hope you could see that on your computers at home, that the new set is the highlighted one now. So I'm going to control click on it or right click on that set very carefully to get this menu, because the menu does something really cool. It has this option, reverse frames. Love this thing. I use it a lot. So this is what I got now. Some people are going to like that option method that I showed earlier. Some people are going to like this method. They're both good. I'm going to do it one more time, but faster if you missed it, right? So I'm going to Command Z that a couple times till I get back to the original 4. Okay, to copy a sequence and then reverse it. That's what we're talking about. In other words, something goes and then it comes back, or something goes and then it comes back. All right. So I click the first keyframe, I hold down Shift, and I click on the last one. There are other methods I've seen people do. This is the one that works best for me. I click one, hold down Shift, and I click the last one. I got my unit. I use Option or Alt to copy it. So I hold down on my Mac, Option, press and drag, and I make sure I put it in a good place. It's still highlighted. By the way, if you accidentally lose that highlight, just use the first one, hold down Shift and click left. No problem, because we didn't reverse it yet, right? So now control click on it. You'll see the menu shows up, or right click and choose reverse. I want to mention, that's interesting here. I got a little change in timing. I'm okay with it. The first time I did this little trick, I option dragged each keyframe, and I thought, oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, I could copy them one by one in backwards order. You know, copy 3, then copy 2, copy 1. Depends how you like to think. Is this behaving for you? This is what you want. So look, I got to tell you something. It's off topic, but in animation, there's always side tangents. You know, there's so many things going on. Just to make someone do this, you know, I got to deal with the hand and then the smoke and the lips. You know, there's embedded things all over the place. All right, so this is what you've got. Let's go back to the main timeline and see if it was worth it. Remember, I told you it was going to be an experiment. I love seeing those thumbs go up when they go up. And I really don't mind you guys who say, can I see that again? Or, you know, I like both. The feedback's so helpful to do this class, right? Let's go back to the main timeline. So again, we're getting used to this in the top left here, this arrow to get back to the main timeline. And you should just play your movie. And I do believe it's quite a bit better. It's very smooth. So, you know, we're warming up. We're going to get ready for this bird exercise, right? And I want to show you something cool about what you just did. Could you be sure you're on the main timeline now. We left symbol editing mode. You know, you see your classic tween, you see a longer timeline, right? Could you make a new layer here? Click in that new layer button on the timeline and get yourself back to frame 1. When you work with a lot of layers, and I know a lot of you have gotten very used to this, you always want to be sure you're on the layer you mean to be, right? You're going to break that lower layer if you add anything to it, you know, like new elements. But look what we could do on the new layer. I'm going to drag out a copy of this right from the library. And another one. And another one. Yeah, I got 3 objects going in this particular layer. And look what happens when I play it. They're all doing the same routine. So I want to be very clear about something. Putting 3 objects on one layer like that will work unless you want to classic tween them. Since those objects are not going anywhere, I just drag them out of the library. They're already pre-animated, right? They have an embedded animation internally, right? The thing is, if I wanted them all to travel, they'd each need their own classic tween. So I would have put them on individual layers, right? So the whole idea is you could do what you want with that object once you got it in your library. So a flock of birds typically are not going to stay still flapping their wings, you know? So if I took out 12, it would look really weird, like birds floating like a helicopter flapping their wings. It'd be really particularly odd. If I wanted all the birds to be flying, though, each one is going to need its own layer so that they could tween, you know, wherever you want to take them, which is what we're going to be trying pretty soon. How's this going so far? You know, so, you know, I want to tell you something. I'm trying to learn, you know, where to stick my neck out and where not. You know, the temptation is to show you how many tricks one could do inside that symbol. You know, what else can we do? Can we shape tween in there? You know, I think I want to do just that one. You know, there's infinite variations, but just to show you that it's up to you how you make the object move, I got a cool idea. You know, by the way, if your computer's misbehaving, you know, we're not going to be reusing those two documents. You could close them if you like. You know, if you think your computer's carrying too much weight, you could close documents as we go. My computer seems to be all right, so I'm going to leave it. Let's do File Menu New. We do a little variation on what we just did. I'm working with the same size, 1280 by 720 at 24 frame rate. And let's click Create. All right, you always want to make sure you can see your stage and the walls. And I'm going to ask you to start again with a simple rectangle. I would just want to say again, I'm recommending that you don't have a stroke, but that's not required. Beneath it, I am also saying that we're staying in merge mode right now, the default mode. All right, let's make our shape. Always start by creating your symbol. So you select it and convert to symbol. And give it some kind of name. I'm going to call mine square, even though it's only square for a little while. Square is fine. I'd like you to classic tween it, right? So you go to that first frame and classic tween it. So the order we're choosing to go in is have it travel first, right? So I'm going to ask you again to give yourself 3 seconds worth of time. So we're going to go out to 3 seconds and F5 it. And I'd like you to return to frame 1. So I just want to say, this has to become automatic pilot as soon as possible. You draw it, you make the symbol, you turn on the tween. I'd like to add, take an estimate of how long you want that layer to be, how much time. So I keep pushing that F5 on you. Go back to frame 1. Now this time I'm going to ask you to choose where it goes. So every few frames you can have it move. By now you see, if I'm going from the floor to the ceiling, right? I'm not doing that in 2 frames, you know, because it's going to be like too fast to see any cool motion. So give yourself some time. So I'm going to actually do a kind of zigzaggy thing. I got 72 frames. I wanted to do, here's 1 keyframe, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to do an upside down W, right? So that's going to be about, you know, let me just think for a second. Maybe 12, 13 frames each. I think I'm just going to go by tens. So here I am. I'm bringing the playhead out to 10. And I'm going to have it go up here. I'm going another 10. And I'm going here. Upside down W. I'm okay with you having this travel differently. I just don't want you to do it blind, you know, randomly click around, right? A second there, that's squirrely. I really, you know, completely misestimated my timing here. That's all right. I'm gonna have it right. It'll just sit there and wait for a little while when I'm done. I'm gonna play this. It's sitting there for a little over a second, but I'm okay with that. Okay. So really, I'm hoping that a lot of you are comfortable with those steps before this week, right? That's old school stuff. What we're adding this week is what the actor can be doing in the meantime, right? So this is going to start again by going to the library. So So once you have some kind of traveling going on stage, just about anything's acceptable right now. Join me by going back to the library. You double click this to go into symbol editing mode. Now this time we're going to do something different, guys. So even if you are getting the hang of the earlier steps, I want to tell you, could I shape tween inside? I know that sounds weird because on the main stage, I just classic tweened. But inside the symbol, it acts like a fresh object. I could do whatever I want, right? We did some frame by frame to make the pucker business, pucker blowed, right? This time we're gonna have it turn into a circle and then turn back into a rectangle, right? So join me on that. Okay. Now we're gonna need to draw our own objects in frame 3. Let me just think about that. Yeah, let's go in frame 3 and again in frame 5. So let's go to frame 3. I want to ask you, here's a question, right? It's like a little quiz. If I want to draw a new object in frame 3, what do I have to do? Anybody but Tiffany. How do I draw a new object in frame 3? Oh
Do you
no.
just
Say it.
create another one? Like,
No,
do you want?
that would. I don't want to copy it. I want to draw a brand new object, a whole different shape. I want to draw a circle in frame 3.
That's why you create a new keyframe and then just start from there.
Excellent. A new blank keyframe. So whenever you need to draw a new object, see, we do a lot of copying in my class, don't we? Copying and transforming. This is why we're not as used to it. When we were doing shape tweening, we were making blank keyframes all over the place. So whenever you need to draw something brand new, right? It's not a duplicate in any way. You have to make a blank keyframe. So go to frame 3, control click. Go to frame 3 and control click or right click and insert blank keyframe. By the way, the one above it, that's the same as F6 and it would copy the rectangle. You know, I want to insert blank keyframe. So you see it's hollow now. I'm going to turn on my onion skinning because it's going to be helpful. We haven't used that in a while. I don't think we have anyway. So here I got a blank keyframe. Make sure you see that hollow circle. And if you missed it, all I said was click in the frame you want, control click or right click, and insert a blank keyframe because you want a new drawing. Down here is onion skinning. Right, this little double circle icon. And the reason I'm doing that is even though I'm on the new frame, it helps to be able to see a ghost of the prior artwork. Because I'm going to get the oval tool and I'm going to do this. So this is onion skinning down here. I'm only did it to help me position it. Once I'm done, I'm going to turn it off. So currently I got the square turning into a circle. All right. What I do want though is I want it to turn back to a square. Right? And I don't need to do any reverse or anything fancy, right? Frame 1's got the artwork that I want. So I'm going to hold down Option or Alt and drag it right over here into frame 5. I got frame 1, square. Frame 3 is a circle. I got to borrow frame 1 and put it here. So I'm going to come back over and Option drag to copy it into frame 5. So this is what I got. Doesn't look too good. I want to shape tween it and see how that goes. Do you have 3 keyframes? If necessary, I'll do it twice. I don't mind. But let's see this through first. Okay, I see a bunch of people have it. So the way we were turning on shape tweening in the past, back when we did it, was we clicked between keyframes, and then we right-clicked or control-clicked, and we said create shape tween. I'll click between the next pair of keyframes, and I'll control-click, and I'll say create shape tween. So now I got this. The only thing I don't like about it is they're way too close. So it feels really twitchy, you know? That means I got to make some more room between them. All right? So I don't know if you're feeling the same way, but I just don't like the way this looks. So I'm going to click between these two and F5 a bit, just to give it more room which means I'm giving it more time. I'm going to go to the next pair and click between them and F5 a bit to give it more time. And now I'm going to rewind this and see how that looks. That looks a little smoother. Well, if you think that you'd like to see what it looks like, you can always go back into the main timeline. I'm back in the top left. The original animation's still here. I'm going to play it. You know, I'm not really too pleased really with my shape tween, you know. It's kind of like swiveling looking. A little disappointing. But it's absolutely working. I'm just not liking it a hell of a lot. Now, I'm going to do this one more time because even if you got it, this is extremely repetition-based kind of work that we do. You know, honestly, I always choose exercises for you that I made for myself that taught me a lot. You know, so really, most of the exercises I show you, I've done hundreds of times. You know, until I feel fluent. You know, let's do this one more time. All right. Okay. Again, if your computer's fighting back, you can close the old ones because we're going to open a new one. File menu new. Same dimensions, 1280, 720 at a frame rate of 24. Let's click create. All right, make sure you see your whole stage, always. And let's keep this one extra simple. I'm just gonna have the object go straight across. So I'd like you to make yourself a rectangle just to stay with the theme. Make it into a symbol. Select it and make it into a symbol. Graphic symbol. There it is in the library. I'd like you to do your main motion to get it sliding across the stage. All right. So I'm going to ask you to make it cross the stage yourself. Choose how many seconds you'd like it to take. If any of you find that too easy, you want it to bounce or something along the way, as long as you can do it quickly, that's okay. I'm going to do it in a minute.
Professor,
Yes.
I have a question. Is it possible to change like to square to circle then triangle, like different shapes?
Can you say it again?
Is it possible to like turn it to just different shapes in like a few seconds, like square, circle, triangle,
Absolutely.
rectangle?
I'll do it. I'm going to do it on this one. How about that? Let's try it out. See, the only thing is, you know, shape tweening itself can be very inelegant. You know, to master it, one would have to spend a lot of time on shape tweening. It has features we're not going to cover this semester. One of them is called shape hints. And what's goofy about it is a rectangle has 4 anchor points. A triangle has 3. So while Animate will do it, it might not look good because it just cannot figure out how to turn a 4-cornered object into a 3-cornered one. It'll do it, but we may not like it. But let's get a look at it. I think the question's a fair one. All right. So what I'm going to do now, give me 1 second here. Is catch up with you. I'm on the main timeline, right? So I have to catch up. I'm turning on my classic tween. I'm going to extend it just a little bit. Maybe I'm just going to go to 2 seconds here with my F5. And whatever I wanted to do along the way in terms of location, I could do now. You know, so maybe I will make it do a little something. Right? And then I'm going to go to the end. Always want to make sure I don't get lost here. Here I am at the end. And I'm going to have it come down. So this is all I got as the simplest kind of classic tween. All right. Now, to make it do something interesting while it travels, again, we have to head into symbol editing mode. So we're going to double click this. Okay. Now, let's stop for a minute. One point I'm trying to make is, as long as the idea you have for the symbol inside the symbol is first time we did frame by frame, then we repeat the pucker one, right? We drew all that ourselves. The second one we did was shape tweening, and there are others. It's almost infinite what we could do inside here. Okay. The question was, can I have it turn into more than one shape? Surely different shapes. So we're going to try that out. I thought those last ones are too close anyway. So this time I'm going to go by 5, give it a little bit more breathing room. You know what? I'm even going to go by, yeah, let's go by 5. Why not? So we have to go to frame 5 and ask for a blank keyframe if we want to draw something different. All right, if I'm not going to copy that rectangle. So I'm going to frame 5, I control click, and I say insert blank keyframe. Now, since I feel a little lost not seeing the earlier artwork, I'm going to turn on onion skinning from the bottom. That probably has a shortcut. Oh, it does, but it's a weird one. I'm going to ignore it. So here I am on the blank keyframe. The question involved a triangle, so I'm going to actually make a triangle, right? So how do I want to do it? I think we're going to use this tool today. This is the line tool, right? It's going to use your current stroke color, so you might want to take a look at the bottom. And what I'm going to do is here, then I'm going to press and drag down to here, and press and drag here. To fill it, I'm just going to get the paint bucket. I could choose a fill color and then fill it. Hang on a second there. This isn't closed. I just want to show you guys this for a minute. Paint bucket won't fill because I didn't close it carefully. I could always get the black arrow, grab it, and just close it now. What else is going on here? Huh. Hang on a second there, guys. My paint bucket is not behaving. What is this causing me trouble? No. You know, can you guys give me a second here? I just want to troubleshoot real quickly. I was tempted to teach you a superior tool. I don't really use the line tool. I was trying to skip steps. This tool, I want to spend more time as a group anyway. So, if your triangle's working, that's fine. If it's not, I'm going to ask you to Command Z till you get rid of it. And we're going to use the pen tool instead. You know, by the way, this is one of the reasons why I'm not using different shapes all that often. I just don't want to get on too many tangents. Here I am on my blank keyframe. I didn't like the line tool for mine, so I'm switching to the pen tool. This is what the pen tool looks like. If you don't see the pen tool on your toolbar, and you'd like to, if you'd like to, come down to the bottom and click these 3 little dots and grab the pen tool and drag it out. So yours might look like this, right? And to see that, you would click the 3 dots and then grab the tool you want and put it between some other tools. I'm going to put mine here. All right. The pen tool, when drawing straight lines, means you click and let go. Come over here, you click and let go. You click and let go. And you go to the first one and click and let go. It always makes a perfect shape. Then my paint bucket will behave rather nicely. More detail than I wanted to go into. If you don't want the stroke anymore, get the black arrow, select it, and take it out. All right. Now, I think I don't want to go into a third shape, but I would. I could come here, make a blank keyframe, draw another shape. Another, and another. I'd make blank keyframes for each. But right now, all I really want to do is set it up so it could turn back into this square. And as we discovered earlier, an easy way would be to option drag that keyframe here. So I have a square in frame 1, I got a triangle in this frame, frame 5. And I borrowed the one in frame 1 and option dragged it out here. This is 10, by the way. I don't need the onion skinning anymore. I'm going to turn it off. So right now, I don't have the shape tween on, so it looks like that. All I need to do is go in between them, control click to ask for the shape tween. Well, I knew I wasn't going to like this. Hate that. It's a very weak shape. I'm going to allow it. Let's go between these two and turn on the shape tween. Remember, I was telling you earlier, it just doesn't know how to deal with those two particular shapes. I wanted to answer the question fairly. So it is going to be doing something, even if I don't really particularly like it. All right. I'm going to go back to the main timeline and see what that actually produced. Yuck. The steps worked, but again, it's about trying stuff and figuring out what's visually effective. That was not visually effective. Technically, it works. Visually, it sucks. You know, I really do want to take this further. And I know people are probably needing a break about now. I hate to lose our momentum. Can I ask you guys to just, even if you're exhausted, to be brave and do it one last time? When we come back after the break, we're going to do something far cooler. I at least want to get the bird done today. I want it to fly. I want it to have a mountain. I'd like it to have seagull sounds in the background, you know, get a little closer to the world that we're all aiming at, right? So let's just do one last one together. And I want to keep this one simple, really, really simple. All right, here we go. I got an idea for us. All right, file menu, new. Create. Make sure you can see your stage. All right, I want you to place a rectangle. I'm going to do a shape tween again, but I'm still starting with a rectangle. See, I left my stroke behind. I'm going to get rid of that stroke. When you're happy with it, make it into a symbol. This time, I'm not even going to name it. So basically, draw it, make it a graphic symbol. All right, I'd like you to turn on your classic tween. And I just want you to do something simple with it. So all I'm going to do this time is go to the end of that 1 second tween. And I'm going to drag this. All right, very, very simple. 1 second, moves from left to right. I do want to go inside that symbol naturally, and we're going to make this kind of short and take a break. 1 second there. Okay. All right, let's go into the library, double click that symbol. Okay, now look, if some of you are comfortable with frame by frame, I could do whatever I want in here. We're talking about shape tweening inside the symbol, just for the fun of it. All right, this is what I'd like to do this time. Let's go to frame 5, but I'm going to ask you to F6 this time. Now follow these steps exactly. You just copy the exact object with F6. Go to frame 10 and do the same thing. Now I do want the beginning and end to be the same, so I'm done with the beginning and end. I'm going to go to the one in the middle. So just to repeat it, I'm backing up. I just want copies of keyframe 1 in 5 and another copy in 10. I want you to go back to the one in 5 though. Deselect that object and pucker it again. This time, oops. You could pucker it more than we did last time because we're going to have shape tween do the rest. I want a shape tween on the left of this keyframe and a shape tween on the right, left and right. I'm going to click over here and turn on the tween. So you copied 3, you went to the middle one and changed it. It's got the same number of anchors, so I'm hoping the shape tween is going to behave better. I'm clicking in between the two, and I'm going to turn on my shape tween. I'm going to the other, that looks promising. I'm going to the other side, turn on the shape tween. And I'm going to play it. Nice. Well, that's much better. I like that one. Even better than the frame by frame version. When you go back, you could play it. Was that any easier? Hey, Gabriel, how you doing over there? All right, okay. All right, lots of thumbs going up. So look, folks, I got to tell you something. I see the challenge in this, you know, I really do. And I really got to be very frank. I know there's a lot of animation teachers out there who are going to do frame by frame animation the entire semester. And they got something, you know, really, but that involves a huge assumption, you know, that that's the only kind of animation you're going to do. You know, and that would work great if there was intro to 2D, intermediate 2D, and advanced 2D. But that's not the way the school works. It's not the way most schools work. I get one semester. And so I'm trying to expose you to a lot of rich ideas. I think by the end of the semester, you're probably going to pick a few that you want to focus on for a while. And that makes perfect sense. All right, let's take a much deserved break, right? It's about 10:40. Let's break to 11. I want to come back and make this into something more narrative, the bird. All right. So I'm going to turn off my screen sharing. I'm going to pause. Okay, I'm going to turn my screen sharing back on. And let's jump in. So again, we don't really need any of the earlier exercises. So if you've piled up a whole bunch of FLA files, you should feel free to close them. You know, on the flip side, if there's any of them you want to study later, save it yourself. You know, you could always pick one that interests you and just do save it wherever you'd like, so you can check it out later. But I don't think that they're particularly urgent, so I'm going to close mine. And you know, they're small files, so I don't think most computers would suffer from files like these. You know, vector art itself is kind of typically light. All right, so let's get started. Let's do File Menu New, open up a brand new document. I'm sticking with the size. This is the size of the day today, 1280 wide by 720 tall, and the frame rate is 24. Let's click Create. And as I always say, get comfortable. Make sure you could see the stage. No guessing allowed. All right. So I want to take a different tactic than what we've been using toward a similar end. And I want to focus on making the star of this animation first. So, you know, that bird you used to draw when you were like in second grade, that looked a little bit like a letter M, right? We're going to do the upgraded version of that, right? So it's still going to be that simple symbol of a bird, but a little bit more interesting. And I want to mention a couple ideas. So I've been saying anchor point a lot today, and I want you to join me on this. I just want you to keep your eye on this for a minute. You know, so here's this plain old rectangle, and with my white arrow, I can make my point about the anchors. So each corner has an anchor, and this program always behaves that way. There are even ways where I could adjust it, and I don't want to get too involved with this today. I just want to make a point. There are ways, oops, a second there. To add anchors. So I have a 5 anchor object here. And is it important? Is it not important? Well, you know, I was talking to Jamal Sullivan, who's a professor at, of 3D animation that I really respect. who can also do this, by the way. And he was saying, gee, you know, I wish there was a better way to impress the value of understanding anchor points and that type of thing, because it just makes animation easier if a person's sensitive to it. You know, a lot of people are used to sketching like this. You know, they want to be animators, but this is how they draw. You know, imagine trying to make those things move. You know, there's just so much data in one drawing. So I want to make this bird in a way that it's going to make it really easy for us to flap its wings and to make changes. And frankly, a tool that's devoted to that kind of clarity and simplicity is the pen tool. So we got a peek at it earlier today, but we're going to use it this time for curves. So I'm going to start with a simple exercise, also give us a break from what we've been doing before we take on the bird exercise entirely. So I'm going to delete this object that I have. And get myself comfortable. This is a little high right now. A minute. Okay, so there's two things I want to make sure that you have on your toolbar. So Adobe's done this thing that I personally don't really like, especially because it's not consistent across their programs. It added this 3 dots at the bottom of the toolbar. You know, and you know, it has stuff you could add, it has stuff you could take away, but really from a teacher's perspective, it's just sort of a nightmare. Everybody has their tool set differently, you know. But there's 2 tools we're going to need. So I'd mentioned the pen tool earlier. I'd like you to double check that you have it on the toolbar. This one that I have underneath it with the plus sign isn't really important. In fact, to prove it, I'm going to drag it back out, right? So it's the 3 dots on the bottom where you go to get the tools that you need. And you need this one. So if you don't have it, please find it. It'll be here. You just drag it in between tools on your toolbar. The other thing that we're going to need is the white arrow. And very often in programs that have it, it hides underneath the black arrow. So here's mine. If you don't have yours, right, it's going to be in that same drag and drop tool window, and it would be here. You know, I'm almost tempted to put mine back, and I'll tell you why. Let me see if I can do that. Because I'd rather put it here, Tween, to get to tool important tools more easily. I guess that's the plus sign of this heavily customizable toolbar. All right, what am I asking you for? I need for you to have the pen tool. Give me my brain just stopped working. The pen tool right there. And the white arrow, which this program calls the sub-selection tool. You guys set? I know that may take a moment. Callista, I want to thank you for giving me as much feedback as you do, even it is with you know, little emojis, because I do appreciate it. I find myself guessing with this class all the time. So I'm repeating things that you don't need repeated. I'm doing things too fast that should be done slower because I get no feedback most of the time. So I'm going to guess. All right, here we go. When you found your tools, click those 3 buttons to put that big thing away. Let's do a quick exercise with the pen tool. All right, first off, I'd like you to click that pen tool and please take a look at your colors at the bottom of the toolbar. I'd like you to make sure you have a fill and a stroke this time. I want them both. I don't care what colors they are, so you might notice I've got a red fill and a black stroke. What I'd like for you to do is this. 1, consider the difference between a click and a press and drag. So if I say click, I mean fire. Click, let go. Click, let go. If I say press and drag, I mean press, drag, and let go. Let's just do a click, click thing, right? Could you make something like a rectangle? Click, 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 click. Takes 5 clicks to make a rectangle. I know there are 4 corners, but the last one closes the object. One thing that's kind of interesting, though, is it totally ignored your fill. So I want to say something about the pen tool in this program that's different than other programs, right? In Illustrator, it would be filling as I went, which, by the way, is kind of irritating. So this program just doesn't do it. So one quick way to fill it afterwards is to get the paint bucket and fill it. Okay, I'd like you to select that object and delete it. Since you have a stroke, you're going to have to double click it. It's not a symbol, it's still editable, and that requires a double click for stroked objects. I'd like you to make a more complicated closed object, and I'll suggest one, but I don't mind if you make a different one. I want to tell you the one thing that isn't acceptable. Wild clicking, la-di-da. I've seen students do this in class. It's like, whoa, you're paying for this? Wow. I wouldn't do that. It's not going to help you. It's not going to teach anything. Closed objects is what we're after. So you might want to make something, you know, like a king's crown. Now, one thing you'll find out is this is an amazing tool for straight lines, and you just learned mostly everything you need, all right? It draws with the current stroke. You could then fill it with the paint bucket. But here's where it gets extra cool. The white arrow is the pen tool's best friend. This is true in Adobe Illustrator, it's true in Adobe Photoshop, and it's true in many, many other programs, right? So you need to get the white arrow next, the sub-selection tool. With the white arrow, you click the edge of an object if it isn't already selected, and you'll see the anchor points. The black arrow doesn't show you anchor points, but the white arrow does, right? So then you could simply perfect that king's crown or whatever shape you just made, you know, to decide how you want it to look. This is amazing for animators. It's utterly amazing. The shape will always be smooth. The shape will always be able to fill. The shape will always be able to transform. If I wanted this crown to, you know, be moving, a moving crown, a little weird, but I could do it, right? Do you guys feel like straight lines are fairly easy and closed objects are fairly easy? Let's just do one more, all right? You could click inside with the white arrow, but not much happens. So I'll have to click to the black arrow if I want to do that. One click will only get the fill. So I'm going to double click it and delete it. I'd like you to try to draw something like a star. So remember, don't press and drag because you'll get curves. We're going to do that next, right? So you get your pen tool again. All right, I'm going to make a star. So I'm clicking inside here. And, you know, not a perfect star, just something with a lot of points. I don't know that any ninja is going to use my star, but it's all right. If you want to fill, once it's closed, just go ahead and use the paint bucket. You know, by the way, I am still in merge mode. Most of the steps are the same in object mode, except if I was in object mode, I could fill just by going to the color chip and picking a different color. It's the only difference I could think of. But then you have to get the white arrow so that you can make whatever changes you want. So one thing that's really kind of important about all vector programs, two of the most famous being Adobe Animate and Adobe Illustrator, right, is it's not really about erasing. It's about transforming. You know, as you're trying to figure out what you want, and it doesn't have to be this kind of scientific, but you could tell I have a lot of freedom. Let's move on to curves because that's really what we're going to want to work with now, right? So again, to select it, please get your black arrow, double click and delete it. Curves are a little harder, right? I want you to try something with me right now. We're going to make ourselves a little mountainscape. And could you watch it first before you jump in? I promise it isn't going to take very long. I got my pen tool again, right? Watch this. This time, I'm carefully not going to click, right? I'm going to press. Now, even while I talk to you, my finger is still down, even though I'm on the touchpad. So my thumb is holding my touchpad down, and my finger is wiggling this. What is this, right? This is not part of the drawing. People call it a handle. I hope you guys could see it. I know it's a very pale color. It's pale blue. But if I drag this way, I want to show you what it produces. It's telling the next line that it's going to be a curve. And the next time I'm also going to press and drag, which lets me choose how the curve should finish. Now, if I kept on pressing and dragging, I could get all kinds of interesting effects. And at some point, I may go back to just clicking as I finish off the shape. I'm going to do that again, but I think I want to see if you guys could see what I'm doing a little bit better with a different background color. Just want to see if this helps. So I started by pressing and dragging this way. Oh, that's better. And basically what I'm saying is make a curve. The length I drag, let me Command Z that. Not that. Hang on a second there. Okay. When you press and drag, there's two things that count about how you drag. The long drag means make a big curve, or I should say start a big curve. The angle tells the curve what angle to be on. So watch this. Here's big and straight up. You could tell that's what the curve's starting with. The next time I click and drag, I have the same options. The length is how big the curve is. The angle is the angle of the curve. So this is an incredibly popular tool for just about everybody in graphics, illustration, animation.
Ira,
Hello.
Zach has to leave the class now.
Okay.
He has a doctor's appointment.
Oh, okay. I hope that goes well.
Okay.
So the way this tool works, it just keeps continuing, right? I could press here and drag to bring this curve up. So I want you to see if you could make something that feels a little bit like a mountainscape. And while you're at it, you'll just get a little feel for this tool. Now, we don't have a long time to work on this, but we have a little bit of time. The idea is not to draw a line. It's to keep going around until you close this shape up. And once you've done that, you can get your paint bucket and fill it. So I'm going to take this a little bit further because we're going to use this to make the seagull, the bird, in a minute. But I do want to remind you, though, never forget about the white arrow when you're working with shapes like these. Look what the white arrow is going to let me do. With the white arrow, if the object doesn't select, I'd click on the edge of it. To work on the corners, I simply click a corner and I can move it around. Edge. This is all off stage, so I don't really need to do this, right? I'm just making a point. To work on a curve, though, you click an anchor point that's next to the curve. And all those handles show up again. Those handles were determined when I drew with the pen tool. So let me repeat that. You click an anchor simply to move an anchor. Whoops. But you do the same thing for a curve. The only difference is you click the anchor next to the curve, and then you don't move it. You move the handles that are sticking off of it. So if I want a shorter mountain, I pull it down. Taller mountain, I pull it up. If I wanted to point a different way, I point it differently. I got to point your mountain now. I could move the anchors anytime I want, that's true. But what if I'm interested, if what I want to do is work on a curve, I click the anchor beside it. It'll bring up the pair that controls the curve. One started the curve and one finished it. And you could change length and angle. Those are the two things for curves, length and angle. I got to show you something else though, right? Now, what I would like you to do though is delete your little mountain. I hope you don't mind, and draw one more, just so you get a feel for it. You might need to switch to the black arrow. And I want you to draw one more. I want to show you something on mine though. So I'm going to start the same way. Hang on a second there. So I'm going to start the same way. I'm getting my pen tool. Right. And I'm starting to draw. I press and drag. Oops. I thought I deleted that. There we go. I press and drag. I move over here. Now, typically, the first time, if you want a mountain, you press and drag up, up. You move over, and you press and drag down to finish that curve. If I wanted what's called a continuous curve, I keep alternating. I just drag down. So now I drag up. Now I drag down. Now I drag up. Now I drag down. That's called a continuous curve, right? I'm going to delete that. So I'm going to select all and press delete. Could you do the same? I'd like you to try continuous curve with me. See, the seagull is not continuous. I want to compare the two main kinds of curve. So select all if necessary and press delete. So the first one I'm going to ask you to press up, press and drag up. Maybe that far. I want you to move over, choose a spot, press and drag down. I want you to move over again and press and drag up. Excuse me a moment. Move over and press and drag down. Move over, press and drag up. That's just for the curves. I could go off stage at any point. Hang on a second there. Acting a little finicky.
Professor,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to leave to get into Zoom, so it acted weird. Yes, Joseph.
what are we doing now?
We're practicing with the pen tool. And, you know, because you warned me in advance, I want to give you a hand, right? I'm going to do this. Do you have the pen tool on your toolbar, Joe?
Oh yeah, I practiced it with it before.
Oh, great. And do you have the white arrow where you can get it?
Yeah.
All right, great. We're going over what's called continuous curves. So the main trick with that one is when you press and drag, you're telling the curve to start going in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
I move over, I press and drag down. A continuous curve is one that alternates. So the next one goes up, the next one goes down, the next one goes up, and I can make perfect curves. And if what I want is a mountain, I could then go about continuing just to close it all up. And we're using the paint bucket to fill with. I want to say the continuous curve is the easiest kind of curve with the pen tool, but the seagull is not continuous. The seagull has two bumps right next to each other. It doesn't have a valley. This goes up and down and up and down and up and down. There's never an angle, and that's why it's called continuous curve. No angles at all, right? The seagull is going to be different. So I'm going to ask everyone to select all, press delete. I want to show you something, and it may be best to watch the first time. The seagull is going to be more like this. I press and drag up again, and I move over, I press and drag down, but here's the problem. I'm going to go right to the other wing. So I have to go back up. But this direction line is telling the next curve to go down. Can you see that even before I click? So it basically means I got to move this handle somehow. And the way you do that is by holding down Option if you're on a Mac, or Alt if you're on Windows. I grab it and I say, hey, next one, go this way. So that I could move over for the next wing. Now I'm going to run through this and then do it slower for everybody. This is also going the wrong way, right? I want to continue that wing on the underside, but it's turning into a blob because this line's telling it to go off in the wrong direction. So again, the magic key is Option on a Mac or Alt on Windows. I hold it down to move this handle, because if I don't, right, let's say I do it with the white arrow, I'm going to blow the last curve because it's a seesaw. The white arrow seesaws. But if you hold down Option or Alt, you could change directions. Hang on a second here. So, you know, the one thing that this version of the pencil doesn't like in this program is it doesn't like me leaving to go to Zoom. So it keeps messing up my work. All right, give me a second here. I have to let someone in. Give me 1 second here. It's I use this tool in numerous programs and it just acts a little bit different in this one. All right. I can see that letting people in the room while doing the pen tool is not behaving. It keeps interrupting the line. So I think I let everybody in. All right. So again, I'm making a seagull. So I press and drag with the pen tool. To say yes. Did someone? All right. I move over and I press and drag down. I have to tell this line it wants to go back up. So I have to hold down Option or Alt. And I come this far. Now I want to do the underside. So I'm going to hold down Option again and move this handle. Let go of Option. Remember, I'm still in the pen tool. And I'm going to press and drag here. This is going in the wrong direction. So again, I use Option or Alt. And then I come over here to close and pull. I'm going to fill it when I'm ready, but I do want to point out that at any point I could switch to the wide arrow, rethink where my anchors are. We are going to be starting with the wings low, right? It's going to be flapping by going up in the air and then coming down. So I'm keeping them low. And any curve I don't like, I click the nearby anchor so I can get back at those handles. And you'll find you could make very elegant shapes because you have this chance to rethink. And this whole bird here seems to be based on just 4 anchors, which is going to be great when we animate because it's going to be very easy to make the wings move. Now, if you're happy with your bird and you've had enough of the pen tool, you could take a pause for a moment, right? I'm going to redo it. So I'm going to select all and press delete. We need the pen tool and the wide arrow for this stuff. We did straight lines just before, right? And then we did mountains, which was a sort of simple mix. This is much more complicated because the curves aren't continuous. There are angles. There's several angles on this bird. So I get the pen tool again, and I start the first wing. Press, that's directing the first curve. I come over here. This is going to be end curve, and I pull to perfect it. That finishes the curve. This is the problem. I need this to point back up for the next wing. You could tell it would look weird if I didn't. So I have to hold down Option on a Mac, or hold down Alt on Windows, grab the handle, and tell it, all right, please tell the curve to go back up. Remember, those are not part of the drawing, right? They're in engineering. The guy who made this, his name was Bezier, and people say he designed airplanes, and he needed perfect curves. And then every other program adopted it. So I press and pull until I like it. And I know I could come back with the wide arrow anyway. The only problem with this that we didn't have on the continuous curves for the mountain was these handles keep going in the wrong direction. That'd be an ugly wing. So I hold down Option every time I want to change direction, or Alt on Windows. Say this wing's going back up this way. I let go of Option. I'm still in the pen tool. So I'm just going to move on, press and drag. So I'm not doing any quick click and release stuff because I want all curves really. I'm holding down Option again because this is going in the wrong direction. Let go. And I come over here and I press and drag to finish it. Just about every time though, you're going to want to reach for that wide arrow. So I go get the wide arrow. And I'm rethinking the bird. Now, I want to remind you, please don't put the wings up in the air just yet, right? We want to start it. We're going to use this one, all right? So I want to get those wings, in what I'm thinking of as a down position. I mean, we might not agree on exactly what that should look like, but that's fine. So I'm moving the anchors to get a good start. And then I'm going to go at the handle. So you click an anchor to find the related handles. And you can get very smooth, actually rather perfect shapes. So each curve is sort of configured by 2 direction lines, the one on either side, to get the look you're after. I'm getting my wings to be fairly even. picky today. All right, when you're happy with yours, let's switch to the paint bucket. Ooh, just want to see something here. It's the, give me 1 minute. It's still there, just acting a little squirrely today. I'm going to pick a fill color and fill it. Does everybody have a seagull? You could tell me if you don't. You know, I want to tell you why I'm choosing to do it this way. I've taught this exercise in all kinds of different drawings, but it gives me an opportunity to talk about the luxury of knowing your own anchor points. Because frankly, to move those wings, it's really going to be about moving the leftmost anchor point, the rightmost anchor point, just to raise them or lower them. And I'll also have the freedom to change the curves if I like, as the wings are extended in the air versus lower. So listen, folks, you know, there's a feature in this program I've not used. I wonder if any of your teachers use it. It's called polling. I have to look it up because I think that might be what I need. Yikes. That was altogether too brave. I changed my mind about polling. Because maybe that'll be a way to get feedback. People feel less exposed, and I could find out what's working. I have to look it up on my own. All right. Do you have a bird? If you would like me to repeat it, thank you, Naftali. If you'd like me to repeat it, please speak now. Turn on your mic. Chat. Tiffany's going to help me out.
Can you repeat it actually?
All right. I'm going to draw the bird one more time. I don't mind, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. You know, I do want to say to everybody in here, one of the big challenges for this is I don't know how many drawing classes you've got to take. You know, I'm an Adobe Illustrator teacher for over 20 years. And I really would love to convince the department they should let me teach illustration for animation specifically. You know, a class designed to focus on this. And then you could take this class after, which I think would be killer. I don't know any school that does that, unfortunately, and I've worked at a lot of schools. So we're doing a little bit of drawing together. All right, here I go. Let me delete this. Let me make just a change for my own satisfaction for a minute. There we go. Because that color was too dark. It was hiding my stroke and confusing everyone. I got an orange background. I think it'll be very friendly. All right, so get the pen tool. Take a look at your own fill and stroke. And remember, in this program, it's going to ignore that fill. So you do need a stroke color. So to start, you press and drag. Do not release the mouse early. You press and drag. And the length is going to take you a little while to get the hang of. I'm dragging about this far for now. When I move over, you could tell where I pressed is the anchor point. So I'm going to choose a spot and press and drag down. And I'm watching what happens. I'm finishing the curve by pulling down. The first curve is the easiest. But the next curve has to go straight up again, right? And it doesn't want to do that because this handle's pointing the wrong way. So this is the one trick that's worth taking a note. To move, to change the angle without the seesaw effect, right? Because this is the seesaw effect. The white arrow is going to ruin the first curve. So if you need to break that seesaw, right, you hold down Option or Alt. So I got to be in the pen tool for this to behave. Bring it up. And let me just do this again because it's better doing it all at once. Press it up, move over, press down. When you're ready to change directions, hold down Option or Alt. And if this is a perfect V, I'm heading towards symmetry. You could see the next curve knows it's starting by going upward and not down here. I move over and I pull it. Every time you want to change directions, you hold down the Option key and say, look, this next curve should go this way. Then you move on, press and drag again. If you go the wrong way, you'll see it. Just correct yourself before you let go. See, again, this has to be moved. So I'm going to hold down Option or Alt, move it on up, come over here, and finish it. After that, I could fill. I'm going to do it a last time, and I know I'm being very repetitive today because it's worth it. So here I go with less narration. Press and pull up, move over, press and pull down. Hold down Option or Alt to change directions. Then move over, press and pull down. Hold down Option to change directions. Move over, press and pull down. It won't take too long for you to be able to tell when this is going in the wrong direction. Option or Alt, pull it back up, let go, and close the object. I'm going to finish that with the white arrow. Now that it's closed, it's easier for me to stop and talk for a second. I want to add that each program that has this tool behaves slightly differently. Thank you. That behaves slightly differently. You know, Illustrator has the most developed version of this tool. And I do a lot of drawing in Illustrator. This one's a little clunky if you switch tools in the middle of drawing. So I try to avoid it. But once the object's closed, you're safe. So with my object closed, I could fill or I could go right to the white arrow. And I'm just going to perfect it. I'm starting to get a picture of it, what I want out of this bird. And really, I chose this method for today because it'll make simple wings for us. They're eventually going to be moving inside of a graphic symbol. So any of the curves could be perfected by clicking the nearby anchor. A little fat on this side, so I'm going to thin that down a bit. Once you're at the white arrow point, or even while using the pencil, you'll start to long handles make really steep curves, and short handles make little ones, you know. And at the angle determines which way the curve is pointing. You guys having any success with this? I saw a few thumbs up, so. You know, we could draw in any number of ways, right? One thing I've noticed about my own drawing style, you know, every single commercial that's animated, I stare at, and I'm trying to figure out how the artist did it. And I love when I see surprising styles. And I can tell a lot of people are working the way that I'm showing you because it's clean, really easy to edit, really easy to make changes when your client or your art director asks you to. Complicated styles with brushes and lots of marks and all that are going to just be real murder trying to edit them. By the way, I'm not saying you shouldn't do those things. You just have to brace yourself. Things are going to be slower, you know. So we're working this way for now. All right, if you haven't filled yours, I'd like you to get the paint bucket and just click inside with a color. Choose a fill color from here or from anywhere. Here's the paint bucket and just click inside. I would also like you to change the stage color. And I'm going to give us a minute or two to find two colors that seem to work well, right? So the paint bucket lets you pour inside of a closed object. The stage is here. So if your bird is selected, you won't be able to find the stage color, right? This is about the bird. So you'd have to click off of it. The properties palette will then show you this, and you can pick any color you feel like using. All right, we haven't made a symbol yet. We're still drawing an editable object. We have a lot of freedom right now. And I don't like the stroke, you know, so I'm going to take my stroke out. I don't really need it anymore. I could still keep adjusting the shape anyway. So I get my black arrow here. I'm going to double click on that stroke and press delete. I like that look. And I'm being a little greedy. I could make changes. All right, I got a couple colors to work with. I got the star of my movie. The wings are very similar and they're low, right? Because we're going to make them raise pretty soon. Okay, now we're going to make a symbol graphic symbol naturally, and we're going to call it bird. I want to point out something though. We have a choice about which we do first, the movement on stage or the movement in symbol editing mode. The movement on stage is going to be, he comes from the distance, right? Flies toward us, maybe makes a little bit of a turn, gets larger because he's getting closer, right? It's going to look something like this, you know. Now that would be on the stage. You know, the flapping of the wings, that's going to be inside the graphic symbol. And frankly, we can go in any order. I think I want to do the graphic symbol part first because it's more about the tools we were just using. All right. Can you get the black arrow and make sure you've selected the whole thing? And convert to symbol. And call it bird. I'd like you to have a look at your library. And sure enough, there's your bird. Now, even though we haven't done anything on the main timeline, to be able to make those wings do their thing, we have to get to symbol editing mode. That's what we've been doing all morning. So we're going to come over here, right on this little icon, and double click it. Yeah, before we get busy, I really want you to train your eyes to keep looking in the top left corner. You know what it looks like when you're in symbol editing mode. I've seen people totally lose it. They're like, oh no, I lost my layers. I'm going to remake them. It would be a terrible idea, right? You know, you'd have the whole background nested inside this graphic symbol. So you always want to know where you are. If you see the name of a symbol here, you're in symbol editing mode. Okay. Now, I want you to look at the timeline here. So in symbol editing mode, not only do you get your own stage to work on, but you get a separate timeline. And that's what we've been doing today. We're going to actually, we're going to start with a simple frame by frame to get these wings to raise. And I'd like you to join me rather exactly on these next steps. All right, we're going to go by twos again. So we're in frame one. I want you to skip a frame and go to the third frame. Now this time we are going to copy the bird. So we're not going to insert a blank keyframe, right? I'm going to copy the bird and edit it. So since I'm going to copy it, I'm going to stick with F6. All right, I got a second black dot, right? So this is the second instance of that shape, the second keyframe of it. And I want to switch to the white arrow now. Here's the idea. We're going to make the wings go up in 2 more drawings. So what this one's going to do is it's going to raise that wing up a little bit. Given the anatomy of the bird, it may stick out a little further. The curve itself might even be adjusted a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing with the other wing. The main point is to raise it, right? Because it's flapping its wings. But if that's not enough for you, right? Since it's going to be a little flatter, it would come out further. And then, of course, I would have to make it flatter for that to really be a reasonable choice. But as long as it's raised a bit, I'm okay with it. I'm leaving these. There's really no change going on here. The one thing you definitely don't want to do is move the bird anywhere, not even 1/8 of an inch. You're just moving parts of the body. If you like the way the 2 of them look, here's the first, here's the second. That's looking pretty good so far. We're going to go on to the third. You might want to put on your onion skinning. So again, onion skinning's down here, this kind of double circle image, this little icon. And we are going to copy it again. We're going by twos. So you got a keyframe, frame 1. My orange background's making this a little hard to see. Oh dear, every color gives me a different challenge. You guys could keep yours. I'm fine with it. Just give me a minute. I want to make sure everyone could really see what I'm doing. I think that'll do. So there's the first frame back there because I got onion skinning on. All right, here's the second frame. I'm going to F6 out here, going by twos. So F6. I hope you could see the pattern here. All I'm going to do is raise the wing. This is why I wanted to focus on the pencil today. there were other ways we could have done this, but I don't really want to redraw the whole bird. So I just raised both wings. I would like to extend this even further. Just, I don't want to get carried away, a little further. Change that shape a little bit. Did I sense a question out there? No? Okay. If you'd like to see a ghost of all three of your frames, you can come down here. This is the onion skinning bracket. And I could spread it out. So I could see there's the first, here's the second, here's the third. I could even scrub the playhead. So that's the way it's going to raise. I'm going to take this kind of far because I've made the bird just keep flapping and it looks like the bird just flew out of Starbucks, after a made-your mocha frappuccino. I actually want it to act more like a real bird. Flaps a couple times and then it hangs out. Whoa. What? Flaps a couple more times, hangs out. Ooh. So we're going to create a pause. So once the wings are up, I'm going to make them pause a bit. So to do that, I'm going to F6 again, but I'm going to skip a bunch of frames. So I'm on frame 5 here, and I think I'd like 7 or 8 more frames, So I'm kind of estimating. We could change that later. So I'm going to go at least another 5 frames, maybe a couple more, and F6 again. So there's nothing going on between these two, right? The wings went up and they stay up. I want to bring them back down now. Now look, I have a couple choices. And I'm going to take the simplest one. I can manually make the next 2, which is what I'm going to do. But I have to say, on my own, if I was alone, I would option drag this middle wing, middle stage. And then I'll drag this one. This way I know it's a loop. But right now I think I'm just going to do it by eye. So let's go a couple frames over. F6 it to start the way down. So this is the one here that I want to bring down. Again, it's all about the white arrow. So I'm going to bring that down. Bring this one down. I might adjust the curves, Pretty subtle. We're used to simple animations that are not subtle, South Park, whatever, that you're also used to Disney. All right, I want to get the wings all the way down here. So I'm going to come out when I'm ready and F6 for the last frame. This is the return of the wings, So it's 3 keyframes to make them go up, a big space, and now 3 keyframes to make them come down. So here I am where I want to put that last keyframe, and I'm going to F6 it. Now I could just eyeball this, but since I have onion skinning on, I'm going to grab this part all the way out. I could see where the original wing was. So I could actually imitate that really closely, which is going to help the loop work. This is what it looks like now. So I could change timing. By the way, I am tempted to see if shape tweening would look good on those wings. I think what I want to do is try the animation without it, just frame by frame. No one could really tell what we did, as we know the tricks of animation. But then if I get greedy, we might see if those wings are tolerant of shape tweening. And if they tolerate it, it'll be much smoother. But let's put that off, right? I don't want to cause trouble this early. All right. Can everyone go back into the scene? So there's your bird sitting there on the scene. We never did anything with it in the movie. So again, I want to remind you, just in case you forgot, if you're in symbol editing mode, you know it from up here. Don't forget you're there. You click that arrow to go back out. I want you to make sure you could see the whole stage for this because we're going to make the bird move. Now, I want to take a breath and I want to ask everyone to save this. This is going to be a pretty useful file, so you might want to save it where you could look at it later. Saved, we're being prudent. I'd like you to go look at the library. Hey, Joseph, are you feeling okay today? You know why I ask? My house is really warm. And I
Oh
don't
no,
have the
it's
heat on.
just here right now in the basement. It's rather chilly here.
Is it really? Where are you? Are you in New York?
Yeah.
You are?
But it's like since it was early in the morning and like I just put this on.
Right, got it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand. I'm just asking.
Yeah, I'm not even wearing a sweater or anything. It's just like that.
Oh, I see. Well, you don't have to prove anything. I assume there's other stuff underneath there, but I don't need to know. I'm just, I'm just kidding with you. Let's take a look in the library, though. I want you to see this. So every time you do that to a graphic symbol in the library, you should be able to. Oh, it's interesting here that the little preview button is not showing up on my library. Let me just double check something. Mysteries abound. All right, that's not a problem. I'm just going to ignore it. Hang on a minute there. Second pause. All right, I'm just going to leave the library here for now. I don't want to get distracted. All right, so it is. Let's make this bird move. All right, we're on the main stage. Be sure that you're in where it says scene 1. That's your movie. All right. Make sure you've backed away far enough because we want to bring this bird here. Now that bird is going to be coming from the distance. So we're raising him up on the page and we're going to get the transform tool and make him quite a bit smaller. So, beware of the shape. You don't want a goofy shape like that, right? You just want it smaller. If you want the exact proportion, you could hold down shift while you do this. Let's put that bird there. That's where he's going to start his flight. So remember, he's a graphic symbol already. We want a classic tween. So we're going to go right to our timeline and turn on the classic tween. So make sure you're on the main timeline. I keep saying that because I've seen a lot of mistakes. You moved your bird up here. You made him small. You're coming down here now and turning on the classic tween. 1 second isn't really going to do it, and I'd like the bird to really take its time. So I don't know. Let's try out for 4 seconds. Going out to 4 seconds, and let's F5 to extend that. By the way, right now I want to show you something. If I play it, that's what he's doing currently, right? That's not really what we want. So I'm just making a point. Once I extend the timeline, he's got time to flap. There's my bird. There's my purple classic tween. I'd like you to bring your playhead back. Now I want to show you guys something. I said 4 seconds. So if you also did 4 seconds, that means you're in the 90s, your frame is 90 something, right? I'd like for you to join me. Let me just think here in the middle. Yeah, let's try it out at the middle. So let's go into the 40s somewhere. Place your playhead and drag the bird to here. This is half of its flight. So in about half the time, it traveled from the distance in the top right to the middle ground, which means it would have to be larger to the eye because it got closer to us. Also, it's a bird. So this thing might actually be doing a little minor rotation. So that was around frame 45 in that area. You just brought the playhead over, dragged the bird. Remember, moving something that's in a classic tween just makes a keyframe for you. So now I'd like to go to the very end, bring the playhead there, and drag the bird all the way to the right on the foreground. I'm going to rotate him again, so there's a little bit of action. And I'm going to make him significantly larger because he's really close to the eye or close to the camera. If you play your animation at this point, you could see how the combination of elements worked. I'd like you to save the document. Again, just plain old Command S or Control S. Are we getting any satisfaction? I don't really mind redoing that last stage. Okay, I'm glad. Thank you guys for letting me know how it's going. The point of this being is I've got over 90 frames here, right? And if I had to go constantly, okay, the bird's a little bigger and his wing is high. Oh, he's closer now. He's even bigger and the wings are even higher. It'd be 10 million decisions just to get the bird to do that. But by isolating what its local motion was, I'm rather bird-like, I think. I saved a lot of work. You know, I had to do more thinking. I had to know more tech, but I saved a lot of work. All right. I want to put another bird on the stage and have it do something. So I'd like for you to make another layer. Get your playhead back to frame 1. And I think what I'd like you to do is drag your bird. So I'm in, new layer, please. Come back to frame 1. And then I'd like you to grab that bird and put him all the way over here. Now, my idea with this bird is he's coming from a different direction. He's a little closer than this guy. So it means he is going to be bigger, but maybe not that big. He's already a graphic symbol. His wings are ready to flap. He's on his own layer, right? And now I want to just figure out how long I want it to take to cross the stage. I'm going to make him go right across this time. So I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe by the time this bird is here, this one has already made it to this side. So in the 40s, I'm recommending. But if your sense of timing is different, you could choose a different spot. So I'm staying, 40s, 50s, something like that. If I drag this bird, it's going to make a keyframe for that bird. And I'm going to bring it way over here. Hey, did I forget to turn my classic tween on? I did. I better Command Z that. Big gray bar. I'm getting tired. All right, folks, sorry about that. I had to Command Z that new keyframe, get back to this lonely gray bar with one keyframe. I have to go back to the keyframe and turn the tween on. So every time you want to put a bird on its own layer, you're going to go to that layer and turn on the tween. There's the happy purple bar. So I got to figure out the moment when I want it to arrive. And I'm going to drag it way over here. So it's going to arrive first, right? Remember that bird started closer anyway. And I'm going to make it bigger to emphasize the fact that he's coming toward us. I'm in a Swift right now. I just did Command return. do Control Enter, of course, on Windows, just so I could keep watching it for a little bit outside of the actual program. And I kind of like the relationship of the birds. I wish there was a little more rotation. I'm going to see what I could do about that. I also want the second bird to go completely off stage because I like the loop. I don't like seeing that wing stick in at the end there. So if you want to make changes, the first question you want to ask is, when should the change take place? There is something at the end I don't like. So I'm going to go to the end. And if it's this newer bird actually ended here. So I'm going to go to that keyframe and move it off stage. That keyframe determined its location, right? So I went back to that location and moved it off stage. Now, I don't know if people are ready for this. I want to do just a couple little things to it, and then we could discuss whether or not I should do a briefer, tighter review. But what else can we do? Well, remember, classic tweening included all kinds of properties, and we used scale for this, changing the size of the bird. We used a little rotation, right? But I'm thinking brightness might be an interesting thing to play with, because as the bird is in the atmosphere, it's going to feel really different in the distance in terms of color, how it's affected by the color of your background, color of the sky, as opposed to when it gets closer to you. So I want to do a couple of those things. About the rotation, though, you can go to any keyframe and adjust the rotation of the bird if you want to see what effect that would have. So that first bird now. And I think that was definitely more interesting. If you wanted something to rotate and you don't have a keyframe where you want it to rotate, so here's the second bird up here on layer 2. I'd like to do a little bit of rotating here, but I don't have a keyframe. I'll click in that spot and I'll F6. Because I'm already in a tween, it didn't copy this location. It took the current location and made a keyframe for me. And I only did that because I wanted to play with a little rotation at that point. I'm rotating the keyframes in opposite ways, so it feels more like a turn. All right, I want to do those properties, but does anyone have a question they could phrase? You could chat them if you're more comfortable. That's a lot of steps, so sometimes you might have questions, but we're not sure exactly what the question is. Let's do a little bit of properties. So any of those keyframes can be used to take the object that lives there and change its brightness or tint. And the techniques are the same, so you're going to choose. Could you bring the playhead back to the beginning? Then I'd like you to click the original bird on stage and have a look at your properties palette. I'm just moving this out of the way. There we're on the properties palette. Remember, you went to the keyframe, frame 1 in this case. You click the artwork once. You guys remember this color effect? I'm going to ask you to choose either brightness or tint. I'm going with brightness, and I'm darkening that bird because I got a dark background right now. And this is the effect that would have. If I don't like it, I go back to the keyframe, I click the bird again. If I don't like brightness, I could try tint. And maybe I'll tint it with some kind of purpley color or some warmer color. And I'll play it. Any of those keyframes houses an instance, a copy of your graphic symbol, and you could use the tint feature. You know, I'd love to believe that everybody's just wildly brilliant, and that's why I get so few questions. And maybe that is the case. Or maybe sometimes you waited too long to ask the question, hoping you'd figure it out, and then I'm off. I bet that happens sometimes. Did tint work for anybody, or brightness? Excellent. All right. You know, I think we should do this one more time, right? The question that I'm asking myself is, should we do it from scratch, go all the way back to making the bird? I think it's probably a good idea, but before we do, let's just analyze this a little bit. I currently have 2 layers, and one of them, the bottom layer, has 3 keyframes. So does the other layer. So I've got 6 total keyframes on the main timeline to produce what we're currently seeing. And there's so many things that I could do with it once I've gotten this far. We haven't touched easing in a long time. Remember how easing makes something change speed while it's flying, while it's moving, I should say. So I'm using this bird in the back here, and I'm just throwing out ideas, and we're gonna do it all from scratch. If I click between its 2 keyframes, I could say, don't go at an even speed, right? Don't. I'd rather you ease in, so start slow. All right, I'll click in between them because that brings the property up over here on the properties palette. Just to give you a peek, ease in. I'm going to accept the default, just hit return. And we'll see, it should look, this one back here, it's kind of red now, should start slow and then speed up. And if that was too subtle, I think it was, click there again. I'll click it again. But I'll choose something further down, which will make it more severe. Port. Hit turn. Oh, I was working on the wrong bird. I'm looking at the wrong bird. Okay, let me turn this guy off. No ease. I meant this. Right? Let me hide the other layer. So tired. All right, let me try that again. I'm going to click here. Ease in. I'm going to try that severe one and hit return. Too severe. I wonder if he would feel like he slowed down before taking that turn. So I could come here and say ease in and out. So in the middle, it'll be top speed, but it'll start slow and end slow. I like that. Classic tweening tricks. All right, folks, brave people. It's a long class. I'm gonna try to end early today. Let's see if we could do a succinct version of this just to get the steps down. So a certain amount of pen tool involved in preparing this, right? So, really one issue that I hope we're starting to realize, and I think your homeworks kind of make it evident, is how do you get the drawings? And what kind of drawings make this job easier, right? Really moving the wings was easy because of the way we drew it. All right, let's just try this one more time. If you like, save this one more time while we're here and open up a new one. File menu, new. I'm going with the same dimensions, 1280 wide by 720 tall at a frame rate of 24. And let's click create. Get yourself comfortable. And let's draw a bird. Only for my demonstration, I'm going to change the background color again. I think it does make it a little easier for people to see what I'm doing. You can do it too if you like. All right, pen tool. So we have the pen tool, we got the white arrow, we're gonna need them both. I'm drawing the bird. Up I go for the first wing. I come over here to finish that wing. I'm pulling and watching to see if I like what I'm getting, and I'm content. This is pointing the wrong way, and that's why it's doing this odd little thing to my curve. That's when I need Option or Alt to tell this, please go this way. I let go of Option or Alt, and I continue with the pen tool. Press and drag. All right, I need to change directions again, because there's no way I'm going to get a wing out of this. Well, that's not that bad, but it's going to be harder to animate. So I hold down Option, point it more in the direction I'm heading, and I move over and I press and drag. And I can come and work with those curves later. I'm getting close now. Again, I got the same issue. So whenever I need to break this long seesaw so the new curve can go off in its own direction, I hold down Option, point it, I'm ready to finish it, and I pull. I'll let a lot happen on the first drawing because I know I'm going to go to the wide arrow and perfect it. So remember, you could move the anchors, or you could click an anchor so you could work with the curve next to it. So once your object's closed, you should go pick a color. So I'm going to get my paint bucket and, pick a color. Fill it. All right. If you like the stroke, leave it. I don't really like it. So I'm going to double click it and delete it. I want to add, we're not going to have time in this semester to spend a lot of time with the pen tool. But if you're feeling at all attracted to it, if you do want to find any YouTube tutorials on it, I would make sure it's an Adobe Animate pen tool tutorial. As I said, it exists in so many programs, and while they're very similar, they're not precisely the same. So I'll often search Adobe Animate in quotes and add the thing I want. Adobe Animate in quotes, pen tool, if you're interested and would like more time on this particular tool. All right, once you've got a bird ready to flap, so I made sure the wings were not high up. That's the choice I made, that's my goal is to raise them. I got sort of medium wings here, right? Sort of out to the right and left. You're ready to select it and make a symbol out of it. So I'm selecting the bird and I'm making a symbol. And I'm going to call this bird 2 and okay it. And I'm going to check in my library. I'm having library issues today, just a little bit, just in terms of keep changing the way all these palettes organize. So it's a little annoying. I'm going to leave it though. There it is. Okay. So next, I want to be clear. We could make it fly first, then go back and deal with the flapping, or we could deal with the flapping first, right? The way we did it last time was flapping first, and in the interest of continuity and not spreading out at this late hour, I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to go inside and deal with the flapping. So you have to find it in the library and double click its icon. Symbol editing mode is a critical idea. There's a lot of weird things about it, like symbol editing mode doesn't have borders, right? It doesn't have a stage. It's just this independent objects universe. And you double clicked it to get there. You check up here to make sure. All right, I'm in bird 2. I see that. I'm ready to move. If this goes well this time, I'm going to see if we could turn on shape tweening and see if that helps or not. It's an interesting experiment. All right, I have one keyframe and I want to copy it 2 frames over. So I'm going to skip. So I'm going to skip one, click here, and I'm using F6. Because this one's going to have higher wings. I get the wide arrow. And I raise the wing. I make any changes that I see as necessary. The main goal is to raise the wing a little bit. You know, by the way, we're going with just 3 positions. You know, if one person was really patient, you could do 6. You can go every frame and be really, really small and have the most perfect Disney-esque bird. You can be doing whatever you want, right? We're just doing a simple version to reduce the amount of work and the time it takes. So I've got this, I got this, and I want to make one more a little higher than that. So I go skip a frame, and I'm going to F6 again. And with my white arrow, I'm going to raise it up. And I'm being kind of intuitive about the changes that I imagine. And I'm going to go back and check. I like this one more. I definitely think it needs to glide a little. You know, last time we had 5 frames in between, or 6 or 7 frames. I think I'm going to go 10 frames out. Where am I now? I'm on frame 5. So I'm going to go to frame 15. And I'm going to F5. Sorry, F6 to copy it. Now I'm going to start bringing the wings down. Last time, we turned on onion skinning to make sure, basically, that when the wings are down, they match the beginning, because it keeps looping. I'm going to do that again. Turn on my onion skinning. Here's the bracket. Spread it like it's the whole thing. Right now, it's a copy of the last one. They're hiding each other. So that's okay. This is the beginning. This is the middle. This is the high wing. This one over here is just a duplicate, right? So I'm going to skip one before I start bringing it down. These 2 are identical. That's why it's a pause. So I'm going to skip over here and F6 it. And I want to start bringing them down. And my onion skinning is not behaving, not seeing it. Sometimes just clicking it brings it back to life. It's a bit of a glitch. Wow, it's just not working at all. Don't know what's causing that, but I'm going to just have to use my intuition. I got one more to bring it down. You know, if I really wanted it to be exact, I'd just drag this one. I'd option drag it. So you could either option drag this one to the end, so the beginning and the end are identical. That's why it'll be a smooth loop. Or you could just take your chances and F6 and do it manually. Your onion skinning may be working. Mine's acting really weird. Maybe I could wake it up by choosing something else. No. Refuses to behave. I'm going to copy this one. I hold down Option and copy it way over here. So here's my bird. That graphic symbol is finished. I want to go back to the stage. So I'm looking in the top left. I'm leaving symbol editing mode by clicking this arrow. Back on the main timeline. You know, by the way, if I went to Flash Player now, I don't think anything would happen because I only have 1 frame on the main timeline. The bird itself in the library is almost 20 frames long. So I'm not going to see any action really with a 1 frame stage. You know, this cycle would run through on frame 60. It would have 3 entire flap cycles. Anyway, I'm going back. And I'm going to extend the timeline for those reasons and others. And I think I'm going to go, again, I'm going to go out to 4 seconds and F5 it. And just because I extended the timeline, there's enough time for the bird to do its thing. What's cool about this whole process is you could choose where to put the bird and you could classic tween its path. By the way, we're not going to do classic motion guides today, but sure would be fun to put this bird on a classic motion guide, have it do its thing and really travel around. All right. So I'm going to ask you to turn on your classic tween. Make sure you're in scene 1, the main stage. You're on frame 1 now, and you turn on your classic tween. Don't really want the bird to start there. So you have to choose where you want to put it. I'm going to repeat what I did because my goal right now is, repetition for learning's sake. So I started in the top right, frame 1. He's really way too big to be off in the distance, and that's what I want to imply. So he hasn't gone anywhere. He's in frame 1. Oh, about a second or two in, I'm going to make him reach this moment. So he's going to fly over here. I want to see something. So he's going to fly over here. All right. And then toward the end of the animation, I'm going to have him arrive down here. So he's working fine. If I want to play with perspective, rotation, tint, or brightness, I've got 3 available keyframes for all of those things. I'm hoping this is starting to get clearer. I'm glad that this is being recorded. I am recording, aren't I? Are you guys seeing a little recording symbol? Good. So that anyone who wants
Yeah.
to,
You have it on.
excellent. It's strange. Just the other day, I put up a video in like yesterday, and it was over 40 views by today. And I have to wonder, was that 40 different people, or was it one really focused person who kept leaving and coming back? So I really don't know. Some of them I get 3 people watch. They were all in class. They all got it. Others are getting hit very, very heavily. So it's a good backup. All right. So I'm going to make a couple changes then. I made that first bird small, but I didn't deal with size on the other 2. So I'm going to actually make this one bigger. I do like the idea of it rotating a bit. I'm trying some different things. I'm going to go to the last keyframe here and make them even bigger. And which way did I rotate this guy? That way. I'm going to actually rotate this one the other way. So it's just more of a turn that he takes. And given my colors, if I make this one in the back slightly transparent, it's going to have a fairly thick atmosphere here. So I'm in frame 1 and I'm clicking it because I'm not going to use brightness and I'm not going to use tint. Same step though. I'm going to use alpha. So that's 0 alpha. That's almost 0 alpha. Here we go, 0 alpha. See if it's worth it. It was kind of cool. All right, I want to do 2 quick things if possible today. I'd like to add a little landscape. I'm going to use the pen tool for a simple landscape. We tried some mountains earlier today. So if you'd like to join me on that, first save this document. I'm going to call this bird 2, and I'm saving it into the same place as I saved the last one. Just so I don't lose it. And then I'm going to ask you to make a layer. Now this layer is going to be the background. So I better drag it to the bottom. You don't have to name it if you don't want to, but you do have to drag it to the bottom. Go to that keyframe, and start drawing. I'm sticking with the pencil today. It's a big pencil day today. So I'm going to go get the pencil. And I'm making a bit of a mountain. Do I mind this curve? I think I do. So I'm going to hold down the Option key. Tell it to do that instead. And I think I'm just going to do something like that. Real simple. But since I want to close it, I've got to close it. I could close it in any crazy shape off stage, you know, because no one's going to see it but us. But instead, I'm going to keep it neat. I'm holding down Option or Alt again, just so I could head down this way, make it a little neater. I am going off stage, I realize that, just to make sure I really cover ground. I'm going to fill it. I got a yellowish bird. I got a reddish background. I don't really know what I want out of the fill, but I'm going to get my paint bucket and come back here and figure out what I want. Fill it. Don't like that stroke. It feels random. I'm going to double click it and delete it. This is what I've got now. Quite a big difference just having that shape. You know, I want to mention, obviously I've done this bird thing before, and I kind of intentionally made those mountains reflect the shape of the bird's wings. I knew that as it traveled, it would do really interesting, you know, design elements. It would, you know, really have a kind of odd relationship since its shape. The shape of the bird is so much like the shape of the mountain. All right, I would like to just for the fun of it, say a little bit about sound. If you're completely exhausted, I get it, right? You know, you could always revisit the end of the video. If you want to join me, we do need today's assets to pull this off. So it's really up to you whether you want to join me or not, right? I'll demonstrate. So I'm going to save this bird and get back to, oh, interesting. Really got to learn about this feature. I want to get back to the handout. If you prefer, you could just go all the way to the home page, right? Because it'll have a similar link. But on each one of these that has an asset, it says it under participating in this class. Get our assets. So I'm going to click to get them. There they go. It's a fairly big file, so I'm waiting a moment or two. Once they've loaded, I'm going to go find them. And open it up. The only one that I need right now is this one, Seagull's Beach Audio. I want to say something practical about organizing your audio. A neat person would move that audio into the same folder where their birds are, just to stay organized. My birds are sitting on the desktop right now, so I could just drag it to the desktop. Neat, not quite, but acceptable. I do want to mention, though, that if you're a sloppy person, you will get away with it, because this program, as soon as I import the sound, it's part of the flash file, you know? So I'm not really going to lose the audio if it's in the wrong folder. It's not like HTML or even video for that matter. They're very picky about where your assets are. This program isn't. I usually keep them together just to stay organized. Right now, I'm just going to drop my audio onto the desktop, Seagulls. And I'm going to go back to Animate. The first step to working with audio in Animate is to import it into the library. And the best way to do that is from the File menu. So I'm going File menu, Import, Import to Library. I have to go find it. I have a copy here, but I want to stick with my demo. Put it on the desktop. I have lots of copies of that. And Already totally forgot what I called it because my brain is falling apart. There we go. Seagulls audio. Seagulls beach audio. And I'm going to click open. So there it is in the library. It even has a little preview button. Now, that's just to prepare it. And if I have a bunch of audio, I'll probably bring them all in at once. How do you actually use it? Well, I like to make a layer for it, right? And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to make another layer. It doesn't really matter where it goes. I'm going to bring it to the top anyway. And I'm even going to call it sound. Notice there's one keyframe. Now, if I drag this out now, it starts in that keyframe. If I wanted to start later, I'd make a blank keyframe and select it, and then drag it and drop it on stage. Thing is, with two keyframes there, I could choose either one and tell it where to start. So I'm going to start in frame 1. I don't really need this one, so I'm going to control click it and say clear keyframe. There's the waveform. And you can tell it's rather long, so we have to see how this is going to behave. Bring the playhead back to the beginning. Not bad. I want to mention a quick thing about that sound behavior. So you find a sound, right? You download it, you create it, then you import it to the library. You choose a keyframe and then drop it on stage from the library, right? So import to library, file menu, import to library. Choose your keyframe and simply drag it out of the library and drop it on stage. That's it. I do want to mention, though, there's a lot going on with the way audio behaves in Adobe Animate. And one of the questions is, do you really want it to loop? So let's be really honest. Usually, no. You know, you're working on a feature-length movie, you're in charge of the seagull. It's going to do its thing, and it's not going to repeat it. You don't really have to worry about looping. You know, there are cases when you want things to loop, you know, but really I would say they're less common than when you don't. And the only reason I bring it up is this particular audio has an interesting behavior I'm just going to mention today. If I click inside of it, the properties palette has a whole sound section that comes to life. So I have to click inside of the audio anywhere, and this section here shows up. The only thing I want to point out now is this one called Event. Later this semester, we may try Stream, which is what you use when you make people talk. This is an event sound. And what do we know about event sounds, and how important is it? It's most important if you're going to let something loop, because here's how it behaves. An event sound will finish, even if it's longer than the movie. So if you got a 20-second sound, but the movie's only 10 seconds, right? The sound will continue playing all 20 seconds. The movie's only 10 seconds long. So let's say the movie loops, but the sound hasn't finished, right? It's going to finish anyway. It's just going to keep going, even though the movie started over. The original sound keeps playing. What's even weirder is every time it reaches its original keyframe, it adds another iteration, another loop. So you'll notice the longer we listen to my looping Swift, the more seagulls we hear. Now it's like Attack of the Birds. Oh my God. So that has certain purposes. I want to give you just a peek at something too. I'm clicking in that sound. This is the sound editing button. And all I really want to show you about it is, let's see how long it is. This is one really long sound. This thing's incredibly long. It's hundreds and hundreds of frames. So that's why I'm getting into trouble. I could have trimmed it. This movie here is in like 96, 97 frames. So what I could conceivably do is drag this thing way over there, which is, subject for another day. I intend to do some more sound with you. So I'm just giving you a taste. This is why we have sound engineers. They would know, what was needed. Frankly, you deliver the animation to the sound engineer and then make this match. But, here would be another method. And now it's only got enough length to match this. And so the loop should not be repeating birds. I don't know. The end feels a little funny. I'd have to go in there and play with that. But that's enough for today. Folks, I got to wrap it up. And I just want to take a quick look at the handout and make sure that I didn't forget anything. I want to repeat, I don't memorize any of your performance, right? So anyone who ever wants to question it has to send me an email so I could look it up, see how you're doing and why, right? So you have to clock your own, right? The assignments are what's going to make your grade. Now, if you talk to me about extensions, then you know what agreement we made. Maybe you couldn't get a computer for most of the semester, so I offered you a particular method of getting the work to me. Maybe you have a medical allowance for extensions, and of course I'm going to support that too. I'm very open-minded, but it's up to you to check your grades and realize that this is a tangible, very real thing that you have to manage on your own. So I want to remind everybody, this is the list of the prior homeworks, and I'm about to give another one. There's only been 4 homeworks, right, in 2 months, right? And there's about to be one more. I want you to make your own bird fly. Now, here's the idea. I don't want you using anything from today. But use any technique you want. So if you don't want to work with nested symbols, you want to draw frame by frame, do it, right? If you have another idea of how you might want to do it. Now, I've taken attendance already. I'm going to stick around for a few minutes. I am going to show anyone who wants to see one more option. But in terms of you, what is what we want? I want a bird flying and it must flap its wings. And you can achieve it however you want. And there's an infinite number of ways to do it. I'd like you to give it a background that counts, right? So it's simply about a bird flying, any length, any stage size, right? Any technique, but it's a bird and it's flapping its wings. You could use today's techniques or other techniques. Anybody have any questions about the homework? Didn't think so. I do want to show you guys something quickly. Here though, I'd mentioned this before and I didn't make good on a promise. I said, gee, this might work well with a shape tween, and it'll only take me a minute to see if it does. I'm going to open the bird in the symbol editing mode again. And I'm going to select this whole thing and tell it to shape tween. They all have the same number of anchor points, something shape tweens like. So I want to see how that affects things. I highlighted everything inside that bird symbol, and I'm going to try shape tween in there. So I get this color. And here it looks good up to a point. What is that? All right, and then it starts to look good. A little couple of glitches there. The worst part was this one. And I'm thinking I could probably delete this. I'm gonna try and delete that one in the middle. That looks better. I don't think I need the middle ones if I'm going to shape tween. This won't always work. It really depends on how those shapes are treated. Got a little blip around here. Let's see how it feels in the finished work. I don't know, does it look any better? It's smoother, right? Because it is tweening the entire time. It's not every other frame anymore. Food for thought. So I was mentioning to you earlier, inside the graphic symbol, there's any number of possibilities if you're going to go that road. You could classic tween inside. It wouldn't help with the wings though. Frame by frame we did. Shape tweening we tried a couple times, but not on the wings. I just added it. And I looked closely to see if it got glitchy or not. I'm sure there are experts in shape tweening out there, you know, but it's really not practical, not as practical as the other kinds of tween. You guys have got to be tired. I feel like I haven't slept in a month. Hungry, tired, a little overwhelmed, but I sure love doing this stuff. Look, I want to say something encouraging for those of you who are sticking around. Don't feel like you have to apologize if you got to run. You know, class ended a minute ago. I just want to say something about creative life and how exhausting it is. You know, for some of us, it's the only life, even if it's exhausting. There's no other life than the creative life. You know, I'm the type of person who I wouldn't be able to get out of bed really, unless I had something creative to do. And I'm being very honest. I'm being very frank. You know, I find a lot of life can be immobilizing. Creative energy mobilizes. The thing is, the investment is so huge. You know, really, you know, Van Gogh did his great paintings. He was very young, 26, 27, you know, maybe 24, 25. Because, but he made up for lost time by painting all day and night, every day for straight years. So what would have taken someone else 15 years to do, he did in a few years because he didn't stop. Didn't work so well for him though, did it? Right? We all know the story, right? He ended his life, you know. So I'm not saying to go that far, but you know, how do you figure out how to use your energy in a way that serves your creative life, your future, your well-being? Well, it is a little like weightlifting. You know, you do a couple reps of a certain weight and you never change it. You're not going to get any stronger. You either got to do more or a heavier weight. And you get stronger, you get more capable, you can carry more. So let's say you follow this road and I bump into you in 5 years, you're gonna be able to do twice as much, not just out of skill, but including skill, including stamina, skill and stamina. So the point is you got to push yourself, but not over push. And some of you may need to change your diet elsewhere. For example, how much TV do you watch? You know, how many video games do you play? You know, how often do you go out drinking with friends? I don't know what the criteria is. Do all you do is homework? Well, maybe you have the opposite problem. Maybe it is time to stop and watch a movie. You know, it really, I can't tell any of you what the measure is. I know my class is exhausting, and I don't really feel so good about that. But believe it or not, this is easier than it was last semester, which was easier than it was the semester before. I'm on this process of simplifying the course. But I don't want to oversimplify. I really want you guys to see a range of options rather than me just tell you which ones I'd like. You know, I really don't want to be the one to make that decision. Anybody have any comments or anything? I hate to tease you about how quiet this group is, but you are the most silent group that I have. You know, and, have I scared anyone? Am I scary looking?
No.
Oh, good. I never saw myself that way. The kind of guy that makes people cross the street. Uh-oh, look at that hairy dude. I am going as a werewolf for Halloween, though, because I'm halfway there. Folks, I want to wish you all, you know, good weekend. You know, squeeze in some rest. You know, I'm totally shot. So I'm going to go hide in a corner for a little bit. And I wish you all well. So again, about this video, I'm going to try to get this online in the next hour or two. It really depends how long Zoom takes and then YouTube. At the very latest, it should be available by tomorrow morning, though. I'm guessing really 3 o'clock today is my guess, 3, 4. If there are no questions, I'm going to end everything and take off. You know, everybody, I wish you well. Brave, creative people, right? Please catch up on homework. If you owe me anything, it's clearly charted on the handout. Please use the email on the handout. to ask me questions. I really appreciate it. Tiffany's hours are also there. And blah, 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 blah. I can't even talk. See you guys.
Bye, Professor.
Bye.
Have a good week. Take
You
care.
too. You too. You're welcome. Thanks for saying so. Everyone out on YouTube, see you later also.